Good afternoon. It is April 27th, 2020, and you are attending the agenda review meeting for the City of Orlando City Commission. Commissioners, we have a few updates on the agenda. Item I-1 on the consent agenda, Public Works, has been pulled, and item 12-1 under hearings, second ordinances, second read, ordinance 2020-10 is an advertised public hearing that was continued from our last meeting. We want to continue that to the 11th. Commissioner Gray, if that's okay with you. I think members of the public think that's happening, so I want to make sure that we don't hear it without having adequate notice and everybody attending that wants to. With that, are there any members, Madam Clerk, of the public that wanted to address council related to the consent agenda?
No, there aren't.
Commissioner Sheehan, you are first up today.
I have nothing. I met with staff virtually last week. Thank you.
Very nice. Commissioner Hill?
I've also met with staff virtually, Mayor Dyer. I'm fine.
Commissioner Burns?
Mayor, good afternoon. I'm fine as well. I had an opportunity to meet with staff. Thank you.
Great. Commissioner Gray?
Nothing, Mayor. Do I need to make, for that one that we're going to defer, do I need to make the motion at the appropriate time?
At the appropriate time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks. Commissioner Ortiz?
We're good, Mayor. Thank you.
Commissioner Stewart? Muted, Commissioner Stewart.
I'm fine, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Okay, then that will conclude our agenda review meeting, and we will go directly into our city council meeting. Welcome. We're glad you've joined the meeting. In response to the governor's executive orders on the COVID-19 pandemic and the social distancing efforts needed during the state of emergency, the City of Orlando council meeting will be held virtually by means of communications media technology. City Hall is closed to the public during this state of emergency, and there's no physical location to attend the meeting today in person. Members of the public are encouraged to participate by watching the virtual meeting live, providing live public comment, or submitting written public comment in advance. You can watch the virtual meeting live on Orange TV, which is channel 488, City of Orlando website, orlando.gov/watch online, or the city YouTube page. If you need more information relating how to make public comment, go to the orlando.gov watch online site, and there is information on that. With that, we will begin with the invocation. Commissioner Stewart, I didn't tell you in advance, but Commissioner Sheehan, you're doing the invocation. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Okay. Well, in light of the fact that there seems to be a lot of division lately and protests and different things like that, and I really think now of all time, it's really important for us to be supportive of one another. So what I would like to share today is one of my favorite prayers. It's actually the prayer of St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine creator, grant that I may not seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner Sheehan. Now, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd remind you, maybe step to the side of your monitor.
Thank you, Mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll and make a determination of quorum, please?
Commissioner Gray,
Here.
Commissioner Ortiz,
Here.
Commissioner Stewart,
Here.
Commissioner Sheehan,
Here.
Commissioner Hill,
Here.
Commissioner Burns,
Here.
Mayor Dyer.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum with all members present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's take up for consideration the minutes from the agenda review and city council meeting.
So move.
Second.
April 13th. Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. All in favor indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Okay, we have no awards, presentations, or recognitions, so give you a quick mayor's update. This is our second virtual council meeting. And the format allows us to ensure that our city projects and our program services are moving ahead while also ensuring that we have public participation. I know it's a little more difficult than our standard meetings, but it's, I think, working out pretty well. This afternoon, we've expanded public participation, which includes the option to provide public comment remotely during the meeting. I want to send my appreciation to all of our City of Orlando staff for continuing to serve during this trying time. I know it's reassuring for our community that city employees continue to deliver our critical municipal services. Commissioners, I want to thank you for continuing to be advocates for our residents and our businesses, helping to ensure our collective health and well-being. And I want to thank our entire community and offer up more encouragement. We've made great strides, and I know we can keep it up. And I know we are all looking forward to the day that we can be together again, but it is critical that we continue to keep the rate of infection down. It must be done strategically in a way that doesn't undo all the great work that we've done in the last 5 weeks. Over the coming weeks, our city leadership will be meeting to discuss a phased approach to determine the health and safety measures that we need to put into place to ensure our employees and the public are safe while working or visiting our facilities. As we await further direction from the governor, the City of Orlando will maintain our current work status and continue to offer more than 300 municipal services online. Additionally, City Hall and other city facilities will remain closed. Just as our city operations are preparing for our new normal, so should our businesses. We continue to seek ways to provide some relief to the business community during these trying times. And last week, we launched a new online request form for businesses to request a reduction in their garbage service if their operations have been impacted during this time. Will reduce the fee billed for garbage pickup, which is typically included in the OUC bill. Businesses looking to request a reduction in garbage service should visit orlando.gov/garbage reduction. With that, we will move to, well, actually, I want to mention two things that are on the consent agenda. One is as we continue our efforts to assist our small businesses, there's an item related to our Main Street districts that will allow the Main Street districts to use money that was originally dedicated to beautification projects toward COVID-19 recovery and support, and also allow them to draw down the remainder of their appropriated funds without the required matching funds. And then secondly, it's Earth Month, and we're celebrating Earth Day. So what better way to do it than to pass a measure to partner with OUC to add 94 additional EV charging stations. And they'll begin installation on May the 1st. Okay, with that, we'll move to consent agenda. And consent agenda is a number of items acted upon through a single vote of council. We give each of our commissioners an opportunity to comment on consent agenda and items of importance, and we rotate that. Commissioner Sheehan is first up today.
Well, thank you, Mayor Dyer. And I would just like to, first of all, thank Advent Health and Orlando Health for their leadership during this crisis, and the fact that that has been well aware how many beds, ventilators, and everything is available. That's just really good public information. I also want to thank Manny for the information that he's been putting out daily, and the Mayor, the information you all have been putting out. I just think that has really helped to encourage people to stay at home and flatten the curve. And it's just really, really good information to have every single day. And I think it just really speaks to our preparedness, and also thanking the first responders and all the medical personnel for their dedicated service to this community during this crisis. I also wanted to acknowledge the city. You see for the vehicle charging stations, and I'm really, really glad that these are going to be going in our parks and our community centers. I think that's a wonderful way for the community to access this. And, not a lot of folks have electric vehicles, but the more charging stations we put in, the more people can avail themselves of electric vehicles. And I think this is just a wonderful program. And also the sustainable procurement program with emphasis on energy efficiency, recycling, renewable energy, and reducing pollution. This is a voluntary but very important first step with our businesses to encourage them to be sustainable as well. And I want to thank Chris Castro for his leadership on that agenda item. Also on economic development, the Main Street agreements, I'm really glad that we're giving our Main Streets the flexibility to put their membership renewals on hold, draw on funds without their match, because right now it's almost impossible to raise money in this current climate. And also, we wanted them to do beautification in their respective districts and gave them money for that. They're actually going to be able to take that money and use it towards their COVID-19 response that they've been doing. I know a lot of them have been doing programs like District Dollars and Mills 50 and Milk Money in the Milk District. I think these are just really creative programs where the district matches the money put in by the business. It actually gives people a significant discount for buying these district dollars. It actually encourages people to go to local businesses. And I actually used mine over the weekend to get some plants over at City Oasis in the Mills 50 district. So again, I think it's just a great program, and glad to see that our Main Street directors are being so creative during a very, very difficult time. And I also want to shout out to Thomas Chapman and the CRA, because they did a really good job. This is kind of the first time we've had some of these historic buildings coming in for facade grants and making sure it goes through the proper procedure. I saw that one of the projects is going to be redoing windows, and I'm like, did it go through a certificate of appropriateness? And yes, it did. So I want to thank staff for all working together to make sure that when we're doing these beautifications, that they're done properly according to our code. And that's all I had, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Sheehan. Commissioner Hill.
Well, thank you, Mayor Dyer. And it is good to see all of you all, even virtually. We're a team here, and I really appreciate all the support that many of the staff members have given me to assist there in District 5. So once again, it has already been said, I'd like to thank the essential city staff that's out there still doing this work, whether it's from our recycling guys and gals to our waste management team. I just want to let them know that we really appreciate them continuing to serve this city. So some of my updates, Mayor, from 4/27 to present is on Monday, April the 20th, I completed the third of a 4-part virtual town hall that has been facilitated by radio personality Monica May in partnership with Onyx Magazine. And the series has featured industry professionals both locally and nationally to discuss issues that have impacted the Black community, and not just the Black community, but all communities in essence with the COVID-19. And we've talked about economics. We've talked about nutrition. We've talked about getting the information out to some of our most vulnerable parts of Central Florida, but definitely the west side of Orlando. And it's been well received. We still have a lot of work to do with getting information out to the west side of Orlando, and also dispelling the myth that COVID virus does not affect Black people, and it does in a very impactful way. And we're seeing that by some of the hot spots that really have affected, even here in Central Florida and even in the city of Orlando, by our data tracker in the Black and brown communities, primarily the east side of Orlando and the west side and northwestern part of the city. And what have we done to get the information out from April the 18th to the 24th, myself, along with Onyx Magazine, Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. They are the folks behind Amendment 4, and they came out to help us focus on some of our low-income families and primarily our seniors. And we went throughout District 5, from the Paramore area to the Northwest W.D. Judge, Mercy Drive corner, throughout Washington Shores, into Metro West. We targeted some of the hot spots that have been identified by Orange County Health Department. And Mayor, through your leadership, how you had communications break down those numbers neighborhood by neighborhood. And it was very effective. And by us being able to identify where did we need to pass out over 3,000 masks, also over 3,400 pieces of literature talking about the COVID virus and some of the critical instructions and tips on how to continue to flatten the curve. So I'd like to thank those community partners by going on the front line with me. And we worked masked up and we followed proper CDC guidelines. But, you know, disturbingly, Mayor, I must say the population that I encountered that we saw that did not have a mask on, or that really was hard to, how would I say it, to get these kids to be responsible, or for them to actually believe these numbers and the facts, was possibly our generation that was from 18 to 25. So I saw that I still have a lot of work to do within that age group. But our seniors were adhering to staying at home. And I was a little disturbed to see that many of those within that 18 to 25-year-old group that were out, they were out without mask and out with their children without masks. And we do know now that COVID does affect our children. And I just was reading earlier this morning where is showing some underlying symptoms with inflammation with our youth. So still trying to get that information. Just glad that I had that group to go on the front line with me and help with offsetting some of the costs. So after speaking with, I'd like to thank Dr. Pino from the Florida Department of Health of Orange County. He has really heard the cry. And thank you, Mayor Dyer and Mayor Demmons, for also your support in making sure that some testing started there in the west side of Orlando. And so the site was chosen there at Camping World Stadium, where I was able to see that streamlined process that was very efficient and safe, along with Mayor Dyer Friday morning. And Mayor, I'd like to report that through Dr. Pino's leadership, by kind of changing the guidelines per se without turning anyone around, and making sure that those that did not have appointments were seen. And that was very important because we know, the digital divide in all urban communities is real. So many of the folks hadn't gotten the information, but they had heard about it by some of the literature. And I got to once again thank the media. The politicians oftentimes, they're not our friends, but they have been a great source of information with getting this very important information out to the communities. And with that, and Dr. Pino's assistance, by even accepting walk-ups, Mayor, while we were there, I think we saw people walking up from all over, coming up in scooters, riding up on bicycles. And that just warmed my heart. And no one was turned away. That morning, Mayor, it was 82 appointments. 20 was walked up. A total served that morning was 142. And then they had shifts, as they told me and the mayor. And so that afternoon, a new crew came in, and they served 94 appointments that afternoon, 129 walk-ups. When we say walk-ups, those are people without appointments. and that totaled 223 served that afternoon. So the response was overwhelming. Over 365 residents there on the west side was served that Wednesday. And they're going to also have additional testing this Wednesday, starting at 8 until 5. We're suggesting appointments, but Dr. Pino would not turn any resident around from the city that comes there. My hope is to continue this testing, Mayor, and also as we continue to move forward and the curve is flattened, to start thinking about how are we going to incorporate the antibody testing, and also trying to see if we can go mobile. I know they talked about doing it mobile, where they will go out to certain populations. So hopefully those conversations are being discussed. I'm still awaiting to speak with Advent Health, which is doing a phenomenal job over at the Millennium Mall.
It's not me. I think it's Commissioner Hill. And then everybody still hear her?
No, I
Commissioner Hill.
can't hear her.
Okay, I don't see that she's muted. PJ?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Commissioner Hill, can you hear us? Okay, I'm gonna get somebody to her office.
Hey, her computer
Yeah,
might.
my aide is going next door to let her know.
That happened last time. Can you guys hear me now? I apologize. We're having some technical difficulties.
can. Commissioner Hill, if you look at the top of your computer, there's mute buttons for both you and for the other participants.
Yes, sir.
And sometimes mine will self-mute itself.
Yes,
So you
it
just
did.
you just gotta watch that.
Yes, sir, I will. Thank you for that advice.
So we didn't get about the last minute or so.
Wow. Well, I'm not going to belabor you guys with it. I'll bring you an update at the next council meeting.
Okay.
So let's just talk about next steps. It was just things that we've done, and I'll talk about it again. But I do believe that this is some very important information, and this has happened because of your leadership, Mayor, and also council's approval. And that was the Blueprint 2.0 training job program that we incorporated here some time ago that you guys gave funding for. So we're hyping that up in this new norm, and we're trying to do everything virtual. And so I've been working with Valencia. I have my project manager working on making sure that we can do virtual registrations, because there are still some virtual courses that can be done. Valencia is also changing their format. So we will start registering folks here soon in an upcoming week for the July course. In megatronics, also and electronic board keys. We're working with doing a virtual job fair and identifying the jobs that will be needed in the new norm, and hopefully being able to train folks that we know have gone on furlough. We know that it'll be thousands and thousands city residents that will not be able to go back to work anytime soon. So with these four.
Commissioner? Commissioner, you're muted again.
Mayor, I've sent someone to help her.
Okay. Looks like help has arrived. while we're waiting on Commissioner Hill's electronics, the reason for okay, Commissioner, I just want to follow up on the reason the Department of Health does have appointments is so that they can spread
Right.
the participants that want to be tested over the course of the whole day and don't have a bunch of people lined up in groups. They will take walk-ups, however, at whatever time, but it just helps them spread it through the course of the day.
Thank you, Mayor, for that. What I'm going to do, because we're still having technical difficulties, I'm going to allow Commissioner Burns to go ahead with his update, and I will update you all at a later date.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner Burns?
Good afternoon, Mayor and fellow commissioners. And I'd like to just echo some of the sentiments that were shared with the essential staff as well as your leadership, Mayor. Over the weekend in District 6, unfortunately, we had a tragedy that happened. There was the killing of a young man, Mr. Dexter Rents, 18-year-old high school student at Ocoee, had a bright future ahead of him, actually had signed to attend Kentucky University, Louisville. He was a wide receiver, and from all accounts, this was a great young man with a very bright and promising future. And this senseless death is concerning to me, the community, and a lot of people involved. But unfortunately, I believe this is a symptom of a larger youth violence issue, which is definitely a public health concern. So, I've been in conversations with Chief Rolon about any strategies or any plans that his office has with combating this youth violence. So I would just ask if Mayor and my fellow commissioners, if you would just join me in a moment of silence for this young man, because again, he had a bright future. So if I could ask you all to join me in a moment of silence. Okay, thank you very much. The next thing I just wanted to mention is that with the Healthcare Center for the Homeless Orange Blossom Family Health, we were fortunate that we received some COVID-19 testing kits, had made an appeal on Channel 9, and a few days later, we received about 500 testing kits from the state. So we're looking at getting, kind of following what Commissioner Hill was mentioning, testing in some of our underserved, hard to reach communities. So I'd just like to say thank you to Commissioner Hill for her advocacy in that area and really getting out and getting the word out, passing out masks and things of that nature, because it's truly needed. There is a lot of education that needs to happen within our communities surrounding coronavirus and COVID-19. So, Mayor, I also would like to just let you know that we are planning some testing in our homeless community members. We've allocated on Thursday or Friday about initially 50 tests that will be happening this week. So we are definitely focused at that very vulnerable population, ensuring that they are getting the testing. So we're working on that. Also, my office, my health center office, we're planning to do some pop-up testing throughout the community, again, in some of the hard to reach communities. And so I'll keep everyone posted on that. One of the keys for us is once we start to announce the testing, we want to make sure that we have enough testing supplies to meet the demand. So we are in discussions with Orange County to assist us with that. And also the last thing, Mayor and Commissioners, we have a food distribution in conjunction with Farm Share happening this Saturday, May 2nd at the James R. Smith Center. And as you know, a lot of our community members are really hurting in need. And, as we continue to have these food distributions, I'm amazed at just the number of individuals that need help. So I just like to thank all of my fellow commissioners and you, Mayor, for all the work that you're doing in the community to assist our residents with, food, resources, and information. So that's it. And thank you for everything that you all do.
Thank you, Commissioner Burns. Commissioner Gray?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll yield my time to Commissioner Tony Ortiz. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Ortiz.
That was very kind of you. Let me apologize for just having my picture there. I'm having some technical difficulties myself here with the video. Maybe it's for the best of the community. Anyhow, first of all, let me start with expressing my condolences to Mayor Brian Nelson on the recent loss of his father. Our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family. Mayor, I also want to take this opportunity to commend you for holding the line while everybody wants to open the doors and start moving along. And we all do. We all definitely want to do that. But, you know, we have to really think about what is at stake here, which is the lives of our people and our community. And you've been very cautious and very methodical about this. And that's something to be praised. So we very much appreciate what you're doing. And thank you. On agenda item A1, I'm excited to see two very important agenda items on the council today, focus on our sustainability efforts, the EV charging stations, as Commissioner Sheehan was talking about, the contract with OUC, and the sustainable procurement policy for city operations. Last week on April 22nd, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. Earth Day is now recognized as the planet's largest civic event, and it led to the passage of landmark environmental laws in the United States, including the Clean Air, Clear Water, and Endangered Species Act. Some of the laws that have worked to protect our health and well-being for decades. Over the years, through the Greenworks Orlando initiative, we have been doing our part to advance a cleaner, healthier, and more sustainable Orlando, most recently recognized as a LEED Gold city, the highest level of sustainability performance for any city in the southeast of the United States. For Earth Day this year, cities around the world focus on the theme of climate action and the importance of reducing our use of fossil fuels and addressing the climate change emergency we're dealing with. As a city, I know we have worked to advance climate action by help to expand more solar projects on city rooftops and in the community, implementing programs to make our homes more energy efficient, and building retrofit programs such as BWES, expanding more electric vehicles and buses and their charging stations. We are deploying at city parks and neighborhood centers, providing free trees to our residents, local food initiative, community gardens and urban farms, recycling and food waste diversion programs, community cleanups and beautification, bike and scooter share, and much, much more. And as a commissioner, I'm proud of the work we have been doing to advance sustainability and address environmental issues through the Greenworks Orlando initiative. I want to commend you, Mayor, for your support and leadership, and the entire Greenworks Orlando team for their hard work. Especially want to mention Chris Castro, the Director of Sustainability and Resilience, Brittany Sellers, Joe Englund, Ian Lahif, Jody Boyas, Daniel Fredline, and every partner in the city of Orlando. On Friday, April 25th, we partnered with United Against Poverty at the Englewood Neighborhood Center for a mobile food market and served approximately 418 cars. I would like to give a huge shout out to Deputy Chief Smith and Lisa Portelli. They did an excellent job. This was a great idea from Deputy Chief Smith, and I think he needs to be commended. So if Chief Orlando Rolón is listening, please make sure that Chief Smith get our praise. The UAP, the United Against Poverty staff, Englewood Manager Alex Temes and staff, our Orlando Police Department officers and other volunteers for their teamwork and dedication to the success of this great event. I'd like to especially recognize Lisa Portelli, who has really raised to the occasion during this particular time. She has shown her true love and commitment for our community through her support and involvement in initiatives like the UAP mobile market. I know she was also involved with the Salvation Army. So I want to praise the CRA and the City of Orlando for our contribution to the Salvation Army last City Council, and hope we can allocate more funding to their cause for additional beds. On agenda item C1, I would like to commend Sherry Gotch, Pauline Eaton, and the whole Economic Development team for the proposed amendment of the Orlando Main Street Agreement for fiscal year 2019-2020 and COVID-19 recovery by allowing the $10,000 to be utilized as financial assistance. We're providing the opportunity for a great opportunity for our small businesses to feel secure during this time of uncertainty. I also want to make an alto and want to thank Walmart, Publix, Sam's, and many other just like them for continuing to take the precautionary measures needed to account for the health and safety of their employees. I hope those that are not will begin to mimic what these companies are doing. And last but not least, today marks the opening day of the second wave for the Paycheck Protection Program application submittal to the Office of Small Business Administration. It's $310 billion. There are talks about a third round of PPP since the first round, the $349 billion, was gone in less than 2 weeks, and they expect this round to be gone pretty quick. So they started accepting applications at 9:30 this morning. So those of you in need of assistance, please rush to apply. For who knows how long this second wave is going to last. Look up sba.gov website or check our Facebook where we will have it posted. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Ortiz, and we'll move to Commissioner Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. And then also what everyone else has said about your leadership, especially leadership of this council. I'm deeply grateful for how you have continued to maintain a good, sound response to the rest of the community. So thank you very much for that. Especially grateful for the data tracker information. And we've done a little bit of work with that by neighborhood as well as zip code. That's been a really a nice thing for our community. They get a chance to kind of see what the direct impact is and see how they can continue to be safe. I want to say a special thanks to all the first responders and healthcare workers, humanitarian organizations. A special thanks to Commissioner Burns and his group over there for the work that you've been doing. We've had a chance to work closely with you and for the work that Commissioner Hill's been doing in the Paramore area. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. I want to say thanks to our residents. I've seen a lot of people responding well to what we're asking. At the same time, I've seen others who have not responded quite so well. And so I want to make sure we encourage those to continue to do that. On the agenda, a couple of 3 things I want to share with you. I'm excited to see that the Rosemont Gym project has continued to move forward. It looks like we're going to be breaking ground in about a month and a half, but we get a chance to approve the contract today, and I think we have a 25.5% minority participation in it. And then, so I'm really excited about that to make sure we move forward. Special thanks to Chris Castro for the work on the charging stations, as well as the work on the sustainable procurement process. I agree with Commissioner Sheehan. It's a great step that we move forward, and being voluntary, a chance for us to collect some of this data to see where we ought to be going as a city. And I think we ought to be looking towards something in the future to make sure that what people we deal with are practicing the same commitment to sustainability that we're committed. But this allows us now to say to the community this is important, and we're going to continue to move down this path. And I appreciate that, Mayor. Thank you for your leadership as far as that's concerned as well. I know that the I-4 updates seem to get redundant. And if you're getting the email daily, you probably see a lot of changes. One of the challenges of giving out a lot of data is that sometimes it's just ignored. But I want to just remind everybody that the I-4 westbound interest at Lake Ivanhoe will be closed for about a month as they complete that portion of the road. A lot of people jump on there, especially in the College Park area, and jump on. You're not going to be able to do that for about a month or 6 weeks. And I appreciate the fact that they're accelerating some of these projects for us as a city. And the last thing I wanted to share with us is we have a lot of amenities that are online now, and I get a chance to talk about the work that our city does. The Science Center, the Manello, the Museum of Art, the Orlando Ballet, and the Shakespeare and the Orlando Rep, all can have online access and online tours of their facilities to get a chance to kind of get a chance to visit, but not have to go. You can visit virtually. And so I'm really excited about that because I think that continues to reinforce the mayor's initiative is, which is that we continue to stay in business and we need to stay in business and continue to work. This is one way that we can share that these are great amenities. And then when we open back up again, that they will give much more reason to come and visit with. So that's all I have, Mayor. And with that, I'd like to move the acceptance of the consent agenda.
And I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Stewart, second by Commissioner Sheehan. All in favor of the motion, indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and let the record reflect that the vote was 7-0 in favor. Thank you, Commissioners. Okay, without objection, we'll recess the City Council meeting and convene the CRA meeting. And the first item is CRA meeting minutes from February the 24th.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay.
Good one, Mayor. It's all good.
Commissioner Hill with the motion and Commissioner Sheehan with the second. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So the motion carries 7-0. Thomas, you're up.
All right, thank you, and good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Item number 2 is approving a downtown commercial and residential building improvement program funding agreement between the CRA and Mitka Nashkova for property located at 203 East Amelia Street. This is actually the first of 2 residential applications before you today. Just to remind you, this program offers a 3-year interest-free deferred loan related to exterior physical improvements and or building stabilization improvements throughout the entire CRA. Mitka Nashkova has applied for assistance under the program, as I said, for 203 East Amelia Street. Funds would be used for window repair as well as hardscape improvements. And the CRA, per this program, is able to reimburse up to 50% of the improvement costs with a not to exceed of $15,000 per eligible property. This applicant's capital investment for the proposed improvement is estimated at just under $41,000, which would mean that the applicant is eligible for funding assistance of up to the maximum $15,000. The Grant Review Committee convened back in March and has recommended approval of the funding assistance of up to $15,000. And unless there are any questions, Mayor, from anyone, they ask his staff is requesting approval of the Downtown Commercial and Residential Building Improvement Program funding agreement between the CRA and Mitka Nashkova for 203 East Amelia Street, subject to review and approval of the City Attorney's Office and authorization for the Chairman of the CRA and the Executive Director to execute such funding agreement.
Questions or motion?
I
Commissioner Hill?
moved. Yeah.
A second.
Okay, Commissioner Sheehan. Let's see, motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Hill. Is there discussion? Hearing none,
Wait.
all in favor?
Oh, I was going to raise my hand, Mayor.
Okay,
I tried to get to the button to raise my hand.
All right, Commissioner Sheehan.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Thomas and staff again for abiding by the historic preservation overlay. That's very, very important to the neighborhood. And I think this is going to be a really great amenity for the neighborhood and improvement for the neighborhood. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Further discussion, hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
I got it, 7-0, motion passes. All right, number 2, Thomas, or number 3, actually.
All right, number 3 is an adjoining neighbor, actually, and this is approving the Downtown Commercial and Residential Building Improvement Program funding agreement between CRA and Clayton High, the property located at 209 East Amelia. Again, Mr. Hines has applied for assistance for funding to be used for hardscape improvements. The capital investment for this proposed project is $21,500. Thus, the applicant is eligible for funding assistance of up to $10,750. Again, the Grant Review Committee met on March 4th and has recommended approval for funding assistance of the up to $10,750. And again, staff is requesting approval of the Downtown Commercial and Residential Building Improvement Program funding agreement between the CRA and Clayton Hines for 209 East Amelia Street, subject to review and approval of the city attorney's office and authorization for the chairman of the CRA and the executive director to execute such funding agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Hill. Discussion?
Ditto on what I said on the other one, Thomas. Thank you.
I got my hand raised, Mayor.
Okay, Commissioner Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. And I echo Commissioner Sheehan's sentiment, which I think I'm so elated about this program. These are the first 2 homes that have taken advantage of this. And I just want everyone to know that this doesn't just apply for downtown, that through council's approval and your leadership, Mayor, that this is a program that can be used for homeowners there in that Paramore CRA. And I'm hoping to continue to help push this so that they know any investment that they make on the exterior of their homes, that we will match it and reimburse them. And this has alleviated, I think, especially for that particular demographic, Mayor, this type of program will help them with some of the obstacles that our housing program, our rehab housing program have, because many of those residents couldn't afford some of their home insurance. And so there were some obstacles for them to actually be able to qualify for our city housing program. But this one only requires that you make an investment, and we will also invest. So thank you, Thomas, for your leadership with this and pushing this program. And congratulations, Commissioner Sheehan, on being the first community to be able to take advantage of it. And I know it's many yet to come. So thank you.
Okay, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries 7-0. Okay, Thomas, any further business to come before the CRA?
There are none more, Mayor. Thank you. Be safe.
And we will stand adjourned as far as the CRA, and we will reconvene the city council meeting. That brings us to hearings, ordinances on first reading. Madam Clerk, number 1.
Ordinance 2020-20, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, annexing to the corporate limits of the city certain land generally located north of Lee Vista Boulevard, east of Conway Road, south of Hoffner Ave, and west of South Cimarron Boulevard, and comprised of 70.46 acres of land, more or less, and amending the city's boundary description, amending the city's adopted growth management plan to designate the property as Community Activity Center, Industrial, and Conservation on the city's official future land maps, designating the property as the Planned Development Zoning District with Aircraft Noise and Cimarron Gateway Special Plan Overlay, and as the Conservation Zoning District with the Aircraft Noise Overlay on the city's official zoning maps, providing a site plan and special land development regulations. Am I muted? Oh, sorry. Providing for amendment of the city's official future land use and zoning maps, providing for severability, correction of Scrivener's errors, permit disclaimer, and effective date.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gray, second by Commissioner Ortiz. Is there anyone from the public that has submitted a request to participate? Madam Clerk?
I don't have any, no.
Okay. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 7-0. Okay, the next one is the first reading of ordinance 2020-21. It's a request for a GMP amendment and rezoning of property known as District West, which is located at the southwest corner of Princeton and John Young. There are a related legislative appeal and quasi-judicial appeal, which have both gone through the process and are on the agenda, and it is appropriate that we dispense with the 2 appeals before we have the first reading of this ordinance. So if there's no objection, I'm going to go ahead to the 2 appeals. And item 15-1 is a legislative appeal for District West. It is an appeal of a legislative recommendation made by the MPB to City Council. At its meeting on September 17, 2019, the MPB considered a proposed amendment to the growth management plan for the development of the District West project, which includes a car dealership and future commercial and multifamily residential uses on property located at the southwest corner of West Princeton Street and North John Young Parkway. After conducting a public hearing, be recommended approval of the proposed GMP amendment. Section 2.179 of Orlando City Code gives the appellant and city staff each 10 minutes to present their case. I guess I should say that there was an appeal made. So let's begin with Elizabeth Dang, who's our planning manager, and then we'll hear from the appellant. Elizabeth.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. I'm just going to share my screen here real quickly with you. Are you able to see that?
We are. Very
Yes.
nice.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, Mayor and City Commissioners. My name is Elizabeth Dang. I'm here to present on the staff position statement for the legislative appeal for the District West project. So this property is located at the southwest corner of Princeton and John Young. It's approximately 71 acres located in District 5. So there are two requested actions associated with the legislative appeal, which is a future land use map amendment to change the land use from conservation to urban activity center, from urban activity center to conservation, from residential low intensity to residential medium intensity, and from residential low intensity to conservation. There's a second amendment to add a sub-area policy to provide development standards for this subject site. And later on our agenda, we will discuss the quasi-judicial appeal, which is associated with the rezoning and the master plan for the site. So as the mayor mentioned, the Municipal Planning Board recommended approval of all of these projects in September. The appellant filed a timely appeal for this legislative item, and City Council voted to defer hearing this legislative appeal until the results of the quasi-judicial.
Mayor, we've lost Elizabeth's, we've lost her audio.
I'm still hearing her, Commissioner. It may be that your computer's muting it.
Mayor, we've lost your audio too.
Commissioner, let's see.
Commissioner, I think it's your audio.
Mayor, I'm unable to hear, and this is my vote.
You could, Commissioner Hill, Commissioner Sheehan is muted at home. Can somebody call her? Actually, I can do that.
I can't hear.
Mayor, can you, I can't hear you either.
I can hear you, Commissioner. Can you hear me now?
Mayor, and I can hear you, Mayor.
You cannot?
I can.
I'm okay.
Let me just call Commissioner Sheehan real quick.
Am I the problem?
Yep.
I can't hear anyone.
I think it's the same issue that I have.
Maybe should we just poll everybody to make sure everybody's online?
Yeah, let's see if we can get Commissioner Sheehan first.
Ed, can you hear me? Well, hang on. Mine's actually working now.
Okay, Commissioner Gray, can you hear me and you on?
Yes, sir. I'm fine.
Commissioner Ortiz?
Yes, sir, I'm
Can you
good.
hear me? Can you hear me through the computer, Ed?
Yes.
I don't know if you're hearing me through the computer or if you're hearing me through the phone.
Commissioner Sheehan, we can hear you through the computer.
I can't hear them. They can't hear me.
Oh, wow. I wonder how that happened.
It's on the top row.
It just stopped.
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. All right, gotcha. Bye-bye. Okay.
All right, Commissioner Sheehan, can you hear now?
I can hear you, yes.
Commissioner Hill?
Commissioner Hill, see, it's the F5 function at the top.
No.
I hear you now.
Yeah, I don't think she can hear.
Now
Yeah.
can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, for everybody, if you look at the F5 and F8, my computer does this occasionally. They both just either mute me or mute the rest of the group. So the little lights will come on. I'm so technical here, right? But if you get muted, that is likely the source of the problem. So just look at that top row, F5 and F8.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll continue on here and just mention that the quasi-judicial recommended order was finalized on January 17th of this year. And then this map shows the changes to the future land use categories. And if you notice in the kind of upper right-hand section of the site, the conservation area is being revised. That boundary is being changed to reflect the development proposal. And the other change, if you look on the south end of the property, you see that what was once residential low intensity is being changed to residential medium intensity and conservation to allow for a future multifamily site. This shows the site plan for the master plan, which we'll be talking about in just a moment. And it shows the car dealership proposal in the northeast section of the site, as well as the hatched areas, which show the wetlands and everything west and south of the new road will be preserved wetlands. This aerial photograph shows the surrounding area. Just off the screen to the north is the existing Walmart. To the east is the Packing District Park that's just now getting under construction. And to the south and west are warehouse development sites. This site is currently undeveloped, and there's also a canal running east-west about 2/3 of the way south on the property. There is a proposed sub-area policy that will be part of the comprehensive plan. And the purpose of this policy is to allow a change in the boundary of the conservation area without actually increasing the amount of square footage or residential units that is allowed by the future land use categories that exist today. So this site, based on the future land use, is already allowed to develop up to 661,240 square feet of non-residential uses, as well as 1,518 multifamily dwelling units. So that amount of development will not change as a result of this amendment. So some background here that this site is located within the Wekiva overlay. These are a set of state requirements passed in 2004 and known as the Wekiva Parkway and Protection Act. So the Wekiva River Protection Area is the area of highest scrutiny. And in Orange County, the only area that's in that protection area is hatched in green at the very far northern part of Orange County, east of Apopka. So the Wekiva study area is a much larger area of Central Florida, and it has a less stringent set of requirements, and it's an area where development is typical and expected, subject to certain standards. And the majority of cities such as Apopka, Winter Garden, and Ocoee are all in that Wekiva study area. So the city has met these state requirements by adopting comp plan amendments and policies in 2005. Those policies were reviewed by various state agencies, and the city was found to be in compliance with those state regulations. And then subsequently, the city also adopted zoning standards to meet those Wekiva overlay requirements. And since that time, all changes to the future land use map in the Wekiva overlay have been reviewed by those same agencies and found in compliance. So locally, the Wekiva overlay applies to the northwest part of the city, including parts of Lake Fairview, Lake Lawn, Rosemont, and College Park. The policy requires a minimum of 20% open space for any development site that's 5 acres or more. And up to half of that open space can be stormwater. So this site has approximately 35 acres of open space, which is 50% of the site. And you can see that hatched in blue here. So that far exceeds the minimum requirement of 20% open space. So in addition, there are wetlands on this site. So the city's wetland policies apply. And the growth management plan includes 3 tiers of wetlands, each associated with different requirements. And then another policy, 1.4.1, identifies the location and quality of wetlands through requiring an environmental assessment with each application to determine if a wetland actually falls into that tier 1, 2, or 3 category, with tier 1 being the highest level of protection. So this map identifies the tier 1 wetlands in the northwest part of the city. It's a generalized map based on data that the city collected in 1991. Conditions change over time. So this map is used for reference purposes, but not to identify a specific boundary of a wetland or a specific quality. It's really important that the city base its recommendations on recent and current data when from an actual environmental assessment submitted by the applicant. So that environmental assessment was submitted by the applicant, includes a survey, as well as a scoring system for the wetlands. So this is the survey right here showing the boundary of the various wetland systems, and those boundaries were also approved by the Water Management District. This is an example of the scoring system. It's locally in the city of Orlando, we call it the QWET system. Statewide, it's called the UMAM score, and there's a series of points. And what these show by both of these systems is that the wetlands are not scoring particularly high in terms of the quality of the wetlands. And therefore, based on those scores, the city determines that these are called tier 2 wetlands, not tier 1 wetlands. To verify that, the city also hired an outside consultant to review the applicant's assessment. And he also found that portions of the wetland sites are of low quality or low value. So the hatched area here shows the portions of the wetlands that will be removed to accommodate the new development, but the majority are being retained on site. And then by preserving other upland open space, there's no net loss in conservation acreage. So once again, this is a request for a legislative appeal, and those are heard by City Council. So City Code identifies factors for findings when reviewing proposed comprehensive plan amendments. And the staff finds that these are consistent with the state comprehensive plan, the East Central Florida Regional Policy Plan, Florida statutes, as well as the city's growth management plan, compatible with the surrounding land uses, and will not have adverse demand on public facilities. So the petitioner had ample opportunity to present to the municipal planning board as well as the hearing officer. This legislative hearing did take most of the day. The petitioners may bring up other factors, but these are the legal standards that the council should use when reviewing the request for the land use change. So the request here is if the legislative appeal is approved, then nothing further happens with the project and it does not move ahead. If this appeal is denied, then the next item would be to hear the quasi-judicial appeal and then to vote on the ordinance. And therefore staff recommends denial of the appeal. And the next steps here would be, again, reviewing the ordinance, transmitting it to the state, and following up with an adoption hearing. I'm available for questions.
Elizabeth, I'm sorry.
I can't find who, I see two people have raised their hand, but I can't see who it is. Commissioner Hill?
Yes, I just wanted to, so this is already zoned. I just want to get a few things out. This is already zoned for development. We're not doing anything new by creating, we're changing some of the wording from low intensity to medium intensity. Is that correct?
That's correct. And we're also moving the boundary of the conservation area to create a more cohesive development site.
And with that, it created more open space.
That's correct.
So it increased the requirements by 30%, correct?
Yes, they exceed the requirement.
And the other, that was somewhat important, and I remember during our briefing prior to COVID here, about a year or so ago, when this came about, that those wetlands in that area, as you showed it, the tree roots that was coming out the ground with no water, that area is very dry, which should be wetlands. So it's very poor quality there. Now, with the improvements that the petitioner, can you speak about some of the improvements that they're going to do and some of the waste that's there that they're going to have to remove, which will improve the quality in that area, and also how this actual project will help improve the wetlands in that area? If you can expand on that.
So some background on the wetlands. There is a canal that runs through the site, which was built back in the 60s before a lot of the modern environmental regulations at the federal level were adopted. So that means that very slowly over time, those canals were designed to prevent flooding. And really what they've done over the last 50 or 60 years is started to very slowly drain the wetlands. So what was a high quality wetland 30 years ago in the 90s has since had 30 more years of this canal kind of working against it and slowly making the area drier and less available for habitat and that sort of thing. So those changes happen very slowly, but they are noticeable when you compare a 30-year difference. And then the second question, and we'll get into this a little bit with the legislative appeal, but they are proposing as part of the cleanup of the wetlands, there was some dumping on the site that created a berm, which they will have to remove that. And they've been looking into some brownfield remediation so that the area can be improved and then potentially improve the function of some of the wetlands that remain.
Commissioner Hill, you're muted. Commissioner Hill, it should be F5 at the very top row.
Hello, can you hear me?
There you go.
Okay, that's all I have, Mayor. I think there was some other hands. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Okay, commissioners, any other questions? Then we will go to the appellant, and the appellant is Dr. Wanda Jones. Dr. Jones has 10 minutes. I understand that she has submitted her presentation to be read by the city clerk. Madam Clerk.
That's correct. I ask that this statement be read into the public record. In approving the appellant's request, the applicant's request for this land use change, the City of Orlando Municipal Planning Board violated several city ordinances and land use codes and state statutes regarding the site in question. If the City of Orlando City Council also approves this GMP amendment, it will follow a consistent pattern of violating its own ordinances, amendment, land use codes, and state statute. Furthermore, it will be providing consent to activities that permanently damage essential wetland, aquifer, and natural resources that are essential to the health of state and federally protected waterways and several endangered species. In addition, the City Council will be supporting, facilitating, and increasing several public health hazards for the predominantly African American community that begin less than 1,000 feet from this property. This urban wetland forest forming the headwaters of the Little Wekiva River has been protecting the air quality of the residents in this community. Because the City Council continues to facilitate the destruction of this urban forest, approval of this amendment and project will increase the current air pollution problem in the community due to cumulative loss of the urban wetlands headwaters forest caused by Don Mealy Subaru Foundry Commercial Incorporated, Dr. Phillips Charities, and the City of Orlando itself. The loss of any number of acres of this forest to build a dealership that is currently located only a mile away on a prime site is not in the best interest of the African American community or the general public. It will, in fact, facilitate the exposure of African American senior citizens, children, pregnant women, and other residents to carcinogenic air pollution and very poor air quality. A recently released Harvard study showed a correlation between poor air quality and the severity of COVID-19 symptoms in people who lived in areas with poor air quality. People living in areas of poor air quality are more likely to experience the more severe symptoms of the coronavirus if they catch it. Are the tax breaks and other financial benefits the applicant and city will receive from this project really worth people's lives? The city mayor and commissioners have been facilitating and participating in the destruction of the Wekiva Spring Aquifer recharge system and wetland forest for the past 5 years. This recharge system is critically essential to the existence and health of state and federally protected waterways and water bodies. Neither the city nor the developers who are also participating in this destruction of these critically important natural systems have conducted truly comprehensive hydrological and geological studies to determine the short and long-term effects of the loss of these impervious surface areas on the health of a spring and river system that is already declining as it relates to water quality and volume. Approval of this GMP amendment will further facilitate the permanent loss of these hydrologic systems and ecosystems which are interconnected. The majority of the acreage on the site in question is Tier 1 protected wetlands per City of Orlando ordinance and land code. If approved, the proposed GMP amendment will be in violation of the city's own ordinances that declare this site as a protected Tier 1 wetlands and in violation of the state and federal law. The city must adhere to its ordinances, state statutes, and federal laws. These are Tier 1 wetlands protected by city ordinance, state statute, the Wekiva Parkway Protection Act and Wekiva River Protection Act, and federal law, the Clean Water Act, and the Endangered Species Act. Approval of this GMP code will negatively impact an adjacent minority community and endanger the respiratory, cardiovascular, and overall health of the residents in that community. Neither the City Council, City of Orlando, nor the developers have conducted any short or long-term impact studies to determine the effects of the loss of hundreds of acreage of forest trees will impact public health as it relates to air pollution. Yet, this same City Council is voting again on an ordinance to protect trees in Orlando during today's City Council meeting. Is the public missing something here, as this seems to be a serious disconnect between the City Council's new tree protection ordinances and this current ordinance to destroy thousands of old growth trees? Many people in this community are senior citizens. Approving this amendment and thus the projects will facilitate the destruction of old growth forest trees that are currently reducing tons of air pollution and protecting the senior citizens and respiratory challenge residents in the neighborhood adjacent to this proposed project. Approval of this amendment will result in the loss of forest and subsequently to a further decline in air quality. Air quality in this community has already begun to decline due to the city's approval of the destruction of over 160 acres of wetland forest and thousands of trees that once existed less than a mile away from this community. If the City Council approves GMP 2019-10012, it will be condoning, supporting, and facilitating the destruction of critically important Wekiva ecosystems and wetlands and the intentional exposure of hundreds of residents to carcinogenic air pollution. Approval of this GMP amendment is expected to negatively impact the residents' property values and the FEMA rating in this area. I include all comments that I made at the Municipal Planning Board meeting and at the quasi-judicial hearing for related ordinances as part of the statement of opposition. They are part of the public record. I also include as part of this appeal statement and the public record of which this statement is a part of, the closing arguments from that quasi-judicial hearing for related ordinances as Exhibit A. I apply all points of opposition, evidence, and argument made against those related ordinances as additional points of opposition in this GMP amendment. Please find the closing arguments attached to this email in which the statement was sent, and those have been delivered to all the commissioners and yourself in an email.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now I'm going to open it up to the public. Do we have any requests from the public for testimony?
Yes, we do. We have, I'm going to take it a little out of order. I'm going to do Trish Madden first because I've got hers is another written statement that I'll be reading, and then I have a couple of live ones. So let me read Trish Madden's. I am opposed to approval of all three of these items pertaining to District West, a controversial project. Please postpone these items until after stay-at-home order has been lifted and public can fully participate. I am staying home in conformance with state and local orders and federal guidelines. I do not believe that I am being provided with a reasonable opportunity to be heard according to Florida Statute 286.0114. Also, proper notice to enter documentation needs to be given more than 24 hours notice. And we have three people that are online to speak. The first one will be Kimberly Bukite.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Bokite, and you'll have, if you'll give us your name and your address, and then you'll have 5 minutes to address council.
Okay, I'm really nervous about this, but I'll do my best. Kimberly Bukite, 252 Spring Run Circle, Longwood. My office address is in Apopka, Florida. I'm a professional land surveyor in the state of Florida, licensed pursuant to Florida Statutes Chapter 472. I have always been proud of the contributions that I've made to building our Central Florida communities. Now, 1 second. And I've done a lot of projects in the city of Orlando. Some of you even may know me from working on those projects. This format is very difficult. I'm uneasy and I'm not even sure that I can use this technology to communicate effectively. I would like to speak on the three separate items pertaining to District West. And the first thing I would ask for is a deferral for all three of these items. It's very difficult to communicate. And you deferred item 12 too, I think for the same reason, that allow the public to participate more fully. And I would ask that you do that on these projects. Would you like to consider that at this time, or should I keep talking?
No, you should keep talking, and we deferred the other one to the next meeting, which will be virtual as well, simply so we didn't have this item and that item on the same agenda.
Okay, could you give me a little bit more time? Because I think we didn't get the time stopped there for a minute. So
Let's just go ahead and give her another minute. Just reset to 5 minutes.
I oppose the appeal and the quasi-judicial recommended order, and I oppose approval of this development, which violates the city's own code, which is in turn a violation of Florida statutes. First, I'd like to call something to your attention as delicately as possible. I believe that staff has erred, and so have the consultants that have been advising staff. And they've erred in their report and the errors in the report have carried forward. This is a tier 1 wetland on this site that is undisputed. So now we're here with a project on the verge of approval with a serious problem that is still unresolved. We have to ask ourselves, why is the formal wetland determination on this site being completely disregarded? The other terminology for that is a wetland jurisdictional line or a wetland jurisdictional boundary, which has been determined. Something is wrong here and mistakes were made. I don't mean to throw anybody under the bus, but people make mistakes. The staff, your staff, they're very nice people, but perhaps they're unfamiliar with or understaffed and did not conduct a proper review of the survey. Or maybe they're just simply not qualified to interpret the appropriate technical standards and the data. There has been no review by the survey department regarding the boundary and wetland survey, which is the official document that memorializes the wetland jurisdictional line on this site. The wetlands on this site are identified as Tier 1 protected wetlands by the city's own designation as depicted on page C25. I submitted that, by the way, so somebody could put that up. That would be helpful. It was also in Ms. Dang's presentation. So there's no dispute that there are protected wetlands on this site. I could walk you through my materials. Basically, in the lower right-hand corner of page C25, it says, note, the protected wetlands displayed on this map are illustrative in nature, designed to display the general location of wetland systems and should not be considered as a wetland jurisdictional line. Yet there has been a wetland jurisdictional line prepared and provided and certified, and that would be further on in the documents that I provided, the fourth one, please, if you could put that up, which is also consistent with the firm map that I provided and also consistent with St. Johns River Water Management District formal wetland determination on this site that has been in place for numerous years over numerous projects that have been tried to go through out here. I can't see the time anymore, by the way. I could walk you through the staff report, although I'm not.
You have 2 minutes left.
Time to do that. But this matter has not been properly analyzed or interpreted. In the closing arguments that were mentioned by the petitioner, there are plenty of pieces of information in page 1 through 13 that review what I would like to have time to review with you today. I recommend that you settle this remaining question of fact over the Tier 1 wetland designation according to your own comprehensive plan conservation elements. It is my professional opinion that the determination was made properly on the wetlands and that these site wetlands are Tier 1 wetlands as defined by the City of Orlando. They are not dry, they are wet. There are fish swimming in these wetlands. I urge you to go out and take a look at this for yourselves. Before any approvals are made on this project, I urge you to read the closing arguments, which we were not able to make during the quasi-judicial hearing.
1 minute left.
Even if wetlands are offered to be put into protection, that does not address the encroachments of greater than low intensity into these wetlands, which is in violation of the city code. And that is why this matter should be denied. So I'll try and walk you through I'll just read to you the end until you cut me off. The designation of Tier 1 protected wetlands is lawfully binding requirement upon the City of Orlando pursuant to Florida Statute 163.3194, paren 1A. The City of Orlando staff has erroneously relied on inapplicable criteria that is not part of the comprehensive plan. And the quality of the wetlands and the UMAM scores have nothing to do with that jurisdictional boundary of that wetland, which is the definitive boundary of the
Okay,
wetland.
that's your time. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Do we have another participant, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we have David Surdeer. David, please state your name, your address for the record. And you have 5 minutes to speak.
David Sturdart, 66 Wintergreen Drive, Fruitland Park, Florida, 34731. David Sturdart, who is just a janitor. You know, I had Sturdart Carpet and Upholstery Cleaning Company. My tool of trade is a broom. And, you know, to me, only trash litters. I got cigarette litter down here. And the fish, right here in the lake, right where I live at Lake Griffin, outside of mobile home park, where my mother's going to be 92, May 1st. God bless her. You know, we do have to worry about the environment. I may be appointed Area 4, St. John's River Water Management District. I do work, and I believe the time is now. The time is now to realize that the neighborhoods, they live there. How much business do we got to put in? You know, our environment. Governor DeSantis right here has a bolder, brighter, better future. I've given the website today of the Zoom meeting here because your clerk, Stephanie, is so good and she's helped me out. I've worked with Chris Castro. What a guy he is. He has ideas for us, green ideas. You know, it was Earth Day, April 22nd, just last Tuesday. And I was a Green Party candidate. Earth Day, right there. I don't know if you can see it, but ideas for us. You know, you guys work with Jerry Demings. You know, I'm worried about the environment. You know, Governor DeSantis on a Monday, November 4th, 2014, DeSantis opens the door to climate change talk. We got to worry about our kids' future. Do we need to get the wetlands out? I mean, we were orange groves at one time. My wife's a florist. You know, I love flowers. I love the environment. My garden. My wife cans vegetables. And, you know, I just worry that business after business after business. I was in Orlando yesterday. I took many pictures. I was down there because Governor DeSantis did a speech at the University of Florida Hospital, where my wife, it's Arnold Palmer's. I'm a great golfer. I got Mike Dickens Club here. I've been to the Masters. I'm a hard-working son of a gun. You know, I think the time is now to realize sometimes to think about what the neighborhoods, what will it affect the neighborhoods? So you talk about a young man that died. How about in Wildwood? A 19-year-old Monday got shot. He was a football player. Just standing on the corner. David Lyons Jr., God bless him. His dad, David Lyons, he's so upset with the gun violence. You know, we have to worry about the nature. You know, I got a beautiful cactus here because somebody's got a 35-footer. This is just orange groves at one time, the mobile home park I'm in, but building after building after building. What are we going to do? What are we going to worry about? Well, the Governor DeSantis is concerned about the algae in the rivers. I've been to Apaka, Putnam County, where the St. John's River Water Management District, as I came back from Tallahassee, January 28th, where I saw Billy Wood, the sheriff, because they take action. You know, God bless you guys to think about it. I've got a picture here of Commissioner Brocky Burns. I gave him a New Year's card on the 13th, I believe, when he got voted in. He's a great guy. His aide, Jason Henry, what a hardworking guy he is. I talked to him on the other day. I talked to Joe Grunners. You know, I was in Tallahassee. I got a lot of the right cards. I'm a concerned individual, a concerned senior citizen. Senator Baxley here calls me his buddy. I've got all your cards. I've got 500 leaders of Florida. One guy's worried about the Everglades, right here out of Jerry Demings' office. What a great guy Jerry Demings is. You know, and you guys know how to work together. It's our kids' future we need to worry about. You know, I've got a Bible here, signed by Mayor Buddy Dyer. And I better hold back because I'm going to be public commenting at the end also. But God bless you guys. You know what you're doing. And think about the society before we put it in. You know, just another car dealership. We got them all over the place down there. I saw them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Serdar. Good to hear you virtually. Okay, any additional members of the public that want to be heard, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we have Mr. James Johnston. Mr. Johnston, please state your name and address. And are you the attorney for the applicant?
Yes, ma'am. Can you
have, I think, 10 minutes then.
Okay, I'm not going to take 10 minutes. I appreciate your time. My name is James Johnston with Schutz & Bowen, 300 South Orange Avenue, on behalf of the applicant. Just wanted to say we appreciate staff's hard work on these applications. We agree with your professional planning staff, the MPB recommendation. I know we're not on the quasi judicial yet, but we appreciate the hearing officer's recommendation as well. All in favor of these applications. I think the bottom line is the arguments raised by Dr. Jones. They have all been heard at MPB and then again in an all-day hearing in front of the quasi-judicial officer. Ms. Bukite was her main witness. She's a surveyor. They've introduced no qualified witnesses as far as professional environmental consultants. Applicant was required to submit a professional environmental study as part of their GMP application. The city had its own outside consultant review it. And so, all the evidence that's in the record is supportive of these applications. And so I just really wanted to say that. I do think it's important to note that the end result of this GMP is going to be an increase in conservation area of 1.35 acres. We're really just reconfiguring the lines, as Elizabeth said, to allow access off of Princeton. The UAC, Urban Activity Center, future land use is already on the property. So is the conservation. And we're just changing the low density residential to medium density to allow multifamily, which we think is appropriate because it abuts up against industrial future land use to the west and urban activity center to the south. And we think it'll be a quality transition from those developments. And so again, we're just here. I've got other people who are available if needed to answer questions, but really we're just here to say we're in support of staff and all the other determinations recommending approval of the GMP ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Are there any questions or comments from any of the commissioners? Commissioner Hill, do you have a motion to deny the legislative appeal and approve the actions of the MPB?
Sir, Mayor, I move to deny the appeal
Second.
And approve the actions of the MPB.
through the actions of the MPB.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion. Commissioner Gray? Commissioner Stewart?
Yes. I a quick question. I want to make sure I wanted to ask to Elizabeth. And the question is about the Tier 1 protection. She mentioned those couple of those things. I guess I'm kind of asking Elizabeth to give back a response to the applicant in terms of the Tier 1 protection of the area over there. She had mentioned that the wetlands, some were Tier 1, some were Tier 2, and I'm just trying to figure out where that is on the map.
Elizabeth?
Certainly. So the Tier 1 process is based on the location as well as the quality. So two different criteria. And it sounds like we're all in agreement that the location was properly surveyed and everyone agrees with the boundary of the wetland. The next part is really the quality of the wetland. And in 1991, when the original study was done, the quality was found to be very high. After 30 years, now we have new data and information, and unfortunately, it's just not as high as it once was. So it no longer has that quality score that's high enough to be considered a Tier 1 wetland, which means it's a Tier 2 wetland, which is more common type across the city. And the code allows for impact to those wetlands consistent with any water management district approvals. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it seems unusual that there is an assumption is made that, of course, we all understand that these are Tier 1 wetlands, but the fact of the matter is that we don't have the same agreement. Is that correct?
Right, and those maps were done in 1991 with grant funding that the city got at the time to survey citywide. And in the 30 years since, there has not been an update. So it's really much older data than we have for most other parts of our comp plan.
So the current update we have really is, the best update we had is really from the applicant who went back and surveyed the work. Is that correct?
That's correct.
We had an independent consultant check his work as well.
Yeah, confirm this information. That's what I thought.
Correct.
All right, good. Thank you. That's all I was just trying to understand that a little bit.
It comes down to, do we use 1991 information or 2019 information? Okay, further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, show that 7-0. Motion carries. Okay, we'll move to the quasi-judicial hearing. Next is the recommended order from the hearing officer in case number QJ 2019-004 relating to a request for rezoning a specific parcel master plan for a car dealership, a framework master plan, and a conditional use permit for the District West project. Same project that was the subject of the legislative appeal. The petitioner in this case is also Dr. Wanda Jones, and the applicant is Bevan Wesley, CFO of Colonial Imports Limited. Let's begin with Elizabeth.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Once again, I'm going to share my screen. Can you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good afternoon once again. My name is Elizabeth Dang, here to present the position statement on the quasi-judicial appeal for the District West project. Again, this is the same project location located at the southwest corner of West Princeton and North John Young Parkway. In this instance, the requested actions are a rezoning to AC2, which is the Urban Activity Center with the Wekiva overlay, as well as conservation with the Wekiva overlay. And then rezoning from planned development with the Wekiva overlay to R3B, which is a multifamily zoning district, as well as conservation. Along with that, there's a request for a framework master plan for the overall site and a specific parcel master plan for Tract B, which is the Subaru car dealership. And then finally, car dealerships in the HC2 zoning district require approval of a conditional use permit. So once again, these items were heard by the MPB on September 17th. And on January 17th of this year, the hearing officer provided findings based on that quasi-judicial hearing. This shows the zoning map. The existing H holding zoning is common after a project is annexed. And what is unusual is it's taken all these years for someone to come up with a development proposal for this site after annexation. So the new zoning lines match the future land use map lines that you saw previously, with the conservation area to the west and a multifamily site to the south. This framework master plan shows several tracts and includes the car dealership in the northeast portion, as well as several tracts for future commercial out parcels, an internal street that will connect Princeton to John Young, and then a multifamily parcel to the south. This is a close-up of the car dealership site plan. And if you'll notice, the north arrow points to the left on your screen, so you can see Princeton Street on the left and John Young Parkway at the top of your screen. So you can see there's a vehicle service area on the south side, and access is from this new private street. The applicant also provided building elevations shown here with a primarily glass frontage that wraps around both sides of the building, with the west side as the service access. So this site is in the Wekiva zoning overlay, which requires 20% open space, stormwater designed as an amenity. It doesn't allow a variance from impervious surface, and they're not asking for one. And there's some groundwater standards that have to be met at the time of permitting. So the quasi-judicial appeal process in city code entitles the petitioner to a new hearing in front of a hearing officer, and that occurred on December 19th. So the findings by the hearing officer are that the subject property is not located in the Wekiva River Protection Area. That was the map I showed previously. We spent a lot of time discussing that. Furthermore, the petitioners alleged that the Orange County wetland regulations applied to this site. The hearing officer found that that was not the case, and that arguments based on water quality, preemption, or Orange County code were not applicable to this site. And the hearing officer just stated that engineering permits cannot be issued until the Water Management District and Army Corps have given their approval, and that's a standard for every project that comes through the city. So this hearing provided the appellant with a great deal of time to make her case and make her arguments in great detail, and the hearing officer did find that the city recommendation was appropriate. The hearing officer recommended approval of all those applications consistent with the Municipal Planning Board recommendation. So the council has the option to approve the hearing order, and then that would follow with a vote on the associated ordinance. If the hearing officer's recommendation is denied, then the zoning and site plan applications would not be approved. So the staff recommendation is to approve the hearing officer's recommended order. And once again,
questions? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Just to mention again, next steps would be transmittal of the ordinance to the state, followed by an adoption hearing.
All right, are there questions for Elizabeth?
No, I just want, this is Commissioner Hill, Mayor Dyer. Elizabeth, can you talk about some of the requirements that the city has proposed to the applicant when it comes to aesthetics and some of the things for that corner of that area, and also on the extending commercial parcels, what can't go in there, because we did put some guidelines on what can be in some of those commercial sites. I think that is important.
That's correct. So there are some standards for design of the building, and you'll see the high quality materials that is proposed for the Subaru dealership. And then there was an early proposal for the piece on the south to be industrial, and the applicant agreed to instead make that a residential use. And all of those other parcels are required to go through what we call a specific parcel master plan for each commercial out parcel. So there will be future review of all the individual sites as well.
Commissioner Hill, I think you're muted again.
I hear her through the wall. She's saying that's all she has, Mayor.
Okay. Are there other questions for Elizabeth? Okay, under section 2.209 of our city code provides that council doesn't have an obligation to entertain any additional comments or argument during its consideration of the recommended order, but we may allow parties to present oral presentation and argument. Historically, we've given each party 5 minutes, so we'll do that today. And petitioner will go first, followed by the applicant. Does Dr. Jones have another statement to be read into the record, Madam Clerk?
Yes, she does. And I would just like to say, as a reminder, those of you who are joining us live and would like to provide a public comment, use the raise your hand feature to request to speak or dial *9 on your phone. This is Dr. Jones' 5-minute presentation to City Council. I remain in opposition to the approval of the Municipal Planning Board of the City of Orlando of these ordinances, and I am in opposition to the pending approval for these ordinances by Orlando City Council. In approving the applicant's request for the above-mentioned ordinances, the City of Orlando Municipal Planning Board violated several city ordinances and land use codes and state statutes regarding the site in question. If the City of Orlando City Council also approves these ordinances, it will follow a consistent pattern of violating its own ordinances, land use codes, and state statute. Furthermore, it will be providing consent to activities that permanently damage essential wetland, aquifer, and natural resources that are essential to the health of state and federally protected waterways and several endangered species. In addition, the City Council will be supporting, facilitating, and increasing several public health hazards for the predominantly African American community that begins less than 1,000 feet from the property. This urban wetland forest, forming the headwaters of the Little Wekiva River, had been protecting the air quality of the residents in the community. Because the City Council continues to facilitate the destruction of this urban forest, approval of this amendment and project will increase the current air pollution problem in the community due to cumulative loss of urban wetland headwaters forest caused by Don Mealy Subaru, Foundry Commercial Incorporated, Dr. Phillips Charities, and the City of Orlando itself. The loss of any number of acres of this forest to build a dealership that is currently located only a mile away on a prime site is not in the best interest of the African American community or the general public. It will in fact facilitate the exposure of African American senior citizens, children, pregnant women, and other residents to carcinogenic air pollution and very poor air quality. A recently released Harvard study showed a correlation between poor air quality and the severity of COVID-19 symptoms in people who lived in areas with poor air quality. People living in areas of poor air quality are more likely to experience some more severe symptoms of the coronavirus if they catch it. Are the tax breaks and other financial benefits the applicant and the city will receive from this project really worth people's lives? The city mayor and commissioners have been facilitating and participating in the destruction of Wekiva Spring Aquifer Recharge System and wetland forest for the past 5 years. This recharge system is critically essential to the existence and health of state and federally protected waterways and water bodies. Neither the city nor the developers who are participating in the destruction of this critically important natural systems have conducted truly comprehensive hydrological and geological studies to determine the short and long-term effects of the loss of these impervious surface areas on the health of a spring and river system that is already declining as it relates to water quality and volume. Approval of these ordinances will further facilitate the permanent loss of these hydrologic systems and ecosystems, which are interconnected. The majority of the acreage on the site in question is Tier 1 protected wetlands per City of Orlando ordinance and land use code. If approved, these ordinances will be in violation of the city's own ordinances that declare the site is protected, Tier 1 wetlands, and in violation of state and federal law. The city must adhere to its ordinances, state statutes, and federal law. These are Tier 1 wetlands protected by the city ordinance, state statute, the Wekiva Parkway Protection Act, and Wekiva River Protection Act, and federal law, the Clean Water Act, and Endangered Species Act. Approval of these ordinances will negatively impact an adjacent minority community, endanger the respiratory, cardiovascular, and overall health of the residents in that community. Neither the City Council, the City of Orlando, nor the developers have conducted any short or long-term impact studies to determine the effects of the loss of hundreds of acres of forest trees will impact public health as it relates to air pollution. Yet this same City Council is voting again on an ordinance to protect trees in Orlando during today's City Council meeting. Is the public missing something here, as there seems to be a serious disconnect between the City Council's new tree protection ordinances and the current ordinance to destroy thousands of old growth trees? Many people in this community are senior citizens. Approving this ordinance and thus the projects will facilitate the destruction of old growth forest trees that are currently reducing tons of air pollution and protecting the senior citizens and respiratory challenge residents in the neighborhood adjacent to this proposed project. Approval of these ordinances will result in the loss of the forest and subsequently a further decline in air quality. Air quality in this community has already begun to decline due to the city's approval of the destruction of over 160 acres of wetlands forest and thousands of trees that once existed less than a mile away from this community. If the city council approves these ordinances, it will be further condoning, supporting, and facilitating the destruction of critically important Wakaiva ecosystems and wetlands and the intentional exposure of hundreds of residents to carcinogenic air pollution. I include all comments I made at this municipal hearing board meeting and at this quasi-judicial hearing for the ordinances presented at the municipal planning board meeting as part of the statement of opposition. They are part of the public record. I also include part of this appeal statement and public record of which the statement is part of in closing arguments from the quasi-judicial hearing 2019-004 as Exhibit A. I apply all points of opposition evidence and argument made in that hearing as additional points of opposition to the city council's pending approval of the ordinance heard during the quasi-judicial hearing. Please find the closing arguments Exhibit A attached to the email in which this statement was sent. That's it for Dr. Jones.
Okay, we'll hear from the applicant. Is Mr. Johnson representing the applicant?
He is. I don't see that he has his hand raised that he wants to speak. Yes, now he does. Okay, he's going to speak.
Hi, good afternoon again. James Johnston with Schutz and Bowen on behalf of the applicant. I mean, again, just to be brief, we've been through the entire process here. We've been reviewed by your professional planning staff, outside consultant. The MPB has reviewed this. We went to a hearing officer hearing after this was appealed where we had, I think, 8 to 9 hours of testimony. What was just read from the petitioner is basically what we went over for 8 hours at the hearing officer hearing. And I think it's important to quote from the recommended order, the conclusions of law by the hearing officer, quote, petitioner sincerely presented her case, but did not meet her burden of proof. Uncontroverted evidence and expert testimony from the city's witnesses showed the application is consistent with all code provisions, growth management plan provisions, and other authorities which are applicable at this stage of the land development process, end quote. And so with that, I would just say we're again here if there are any questions, but we would request that you follow the hearing officer recommended order in denying the appeal and approving those quasi-judicial items. Thank you.
Are there questions? Madam Clerk, do you have members of the public that want to comment?
Yes, I have Miss Kimberly Bukite will be speaking again.
Okay, this is a quasi-judicial hearing and you cannot introduce new evidence that is outside the record. So I'm going to allow you to speak, but just for 3 minutes, and it can be in the form of argument or opinion, but not trying to introduce new evidence. And I would caution the commissioners that if there is new evidence that's introduced, it should be disregarded. Okay.
First, I would like to make sure you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, I take exception to the 3 minutes. I'd like to ask for 5 minutes as I was expecting to have.
We're going to limit it to 3 minutes. Actually,
okay. I don't think I can get it in 3 minutes. All right. Here's policy 1.4.4 out of your code. The general location and extent of these wetland systems are displayed on the protected wetland general location map series. It says nothing about quality. Ms. Dang is incorrect in saying that quality is an issue. The wetland determination was done in 2019. That's 2019. That is a current wetland determination on that site. I take issue with Mr. Johnson's statement that there were no qualified experts at the hearing. I was one of them. Only land surveyors licensed pursuant to Florida statute, chapter 472, are qualified to determine a boundary in the state of Florida. I'm reading to you now from Florida Administrative Code 62-340.300, delineation of wetlands. The landward extent, I use your own word. For example, i.e. the boundary of wetlands as defined in blah, blah, blah. So Ms. Dang is applying the improper statute. Your staff has made a mistake. No one is admitting that there's been a mistake made. Commissioner Stewart is the only one that's starting to get it. There is either a wetland or not a wetland. That wetland determination did not specify tier 1, tier 2, because any wetlands on this site are tier 1 wetlands by your own definition, by virtue of being specified on page C25 of the conservation policy document. If there are wetlands on this site and they have been determined according to a current certified survey in 2019 conducted by a qualified professional, that is the wetland boundary, and it is a tier 1 wetland. That is a specific question of fact that you are ignoring. Your consultant, I guess, is eSciences, David Bankin, dated July 24, 2019, report doesn't even refer to the boundary of these wetlands, and he is not qualified to determine the boundary of a wetland. And I'm going to end there because I tried to get in as much as I could that is not new evidence, but the city has made a mistake, their consultants have made a mistake, and you are failing to recognize the boundary of this tier 1 wetland, and you cannot encroach into a tier 1 wetland with anything above low density.
Okay, that's your time, but the good news is we still have the ordinance to read in here, and you'll have another 5 minutes there. Okay, is there anybody else from the public, Madam Clerk?
No, I don't see anybody else.
So
Okay.
Mayor, I'd like to move to approve the recommendation of our of the quasi judicial hearing officer.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hill. Who was the second? I'm sorry. Second by Commissioner Stewart. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Show the motion passing 7-0. Okay, that then we will return back to hearings ordinances on first reading. And Madam Clerk, if you would read item 11 sub 2 2020-21.
Ordinance 2020-21, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending the city's growth management plan to change the future land use map designation for certain land generally located at the southwest corner of West Princeton Street and North John Young Parkway, comprised of 71.56 acres of land, more or less, from conservation to urban activity center in part, urban activity center to conservation in part, residential low intensity to residential medium intensity in part, and residential low intensity to conservation in part. Establishing a new sub-area policy for the same property to preserve the conservation areas on the property and to provide a maximum development program, changing the property's zoning designation from holding to urban activity center in part, and conservation in part from planned development to medium intensity development in part, and conservation in part, all with the Wekiva Overlay Zoning District providing for amendment of the city's official future land use and zoning maps, providing for severability, correction of scrivener's error, permit disclaimer, and an effective date.
Commissioner Hill.
Yes, I move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. This is an ordinance implementing the actions that we were just the subject of the 2 appeals. Is there anyone from the public that would like to give testimony on this matter, Madam Clerk?
Yes, there is. I have another statement from Dr. Jones, and then I have another 3 or 4 other people to comment. So I'll read Dr.
Okay,
Jones.
is this a different statement or are you reading the same statement?
It's basically the same. It's got the same information in it. Yep.
Well, is it exactly the same?
No, it's not exactly the same. She's got it in different bullets, but
Okay,
it does.
go ahead.
I'll read it.
Go ahead and read it.
Okay. I'm in opposition to the ordinance for all the reasons I and others have stated during the municipal planning board meeting, during the quasi-judicial hearing for this project, and in my 10-minute appeal presentation and in my 5-minute presentation about the quasi-judicial hearing. Don Mealy Subaru Capital Import seeks to destroy my neighbor's air quality, wetlands, an old growth wetland forest, and a critically vulnerable spring aquifer recharge site in order to build its new dealership less than a mile away from its current long-established and popular location. This short, unnecessary relocation will exacerbate currently poor air quality per the EPA and compromised respiratory health of residents of a low-income African-American neighborhood during a pandemic, destroy a critically essential old-growth forest that is located in a minority community that includes a large percentage of senior citizens who rely upon the forest as a protective measure against air pollution from a major highway and semi-truck industrial forest located immediately adjacent to the community. Destroy fully functioning wetlands and old-growth wetland forests, destroy critically essential habitat for several federally and state-protected wildlife species, destroy a critically important aquifer recharge site for a federally protected spring and river, destroy the headwaters of the primary tributary of a federally protected river, destroy critically essential wetlands that are protected as Tier 1 wetlands and by state law, further facilitate the conversion of an African-American neighborhood into an industrial destination, therefore destroying the neighbor's value and tranquility. If any part of these wetlands and their forests are destroyed instead of being conserved, the Orlando City Council and Don Mealy Subaru will forever be associated with the destruction of the last forest in Orlando, the destruction of the headwaters of the most important tributary to a federally protected river, the destruction of a protected state and aquifer recharge land, the resulting decrease in air quality for low-income African-American community, especially considering that these communities have been the hardest hit by COVID-19, largely due to poor air quality. The destruction of the habitat of federally protected species, and an environmental justice issue concerning the discrimination against and dissemination of environmental conditions in an African-American community. Don Mealy Subaru Capital Imports has tried to make a destruction of the wetlands and forests more palatable by claiming it's remediating a brownfield site. The 2018 site investigation conducted by Don Mealy Subaru's own consultant did not find any chemical leakage, and the soil and groundwater analysis conducted at the time found that the few chemicals or metals associated with the small amounts of household material, bricks, pieces of asphalt and concrete, tires, and gravel dumped by trespassers were all within acceptable state and or national levels. In actuality, Don Mead Subaru is using the small amount of household waste to claim it is benefiting the African-American neighborhood in which the forest is located. In actuality, Don Mealy Subaru is taking a fully functional wetland and wetland forest site that is currently benefiting, not harming, the African-American community and destroying it, an act that will be detrimental to the health of this African-American neighborhood because it will increase air pollution and a further decrease in air quality. The unconscionable irony is that Don Mealy Subaru seeks to destroy a functioning forest that will further decrease the poor air quality in this African-American neighborhood by destroying what is remaining of the forest that is currently absorbing carbon dioxide and particulate matter coming from the heavy semi-truck traffic and vehicular traffic using the highway that cuts through the original tract of forest. With COVID-19 being a respiratory virus that is not going away, we all need the clean air. We need all the clean air we can get. Are people's health and lives really worth the financial gain imagined by the city and by Don Mealy Subaru by destroying this forest. According to the EPA, the air quality in this neighborhood is already ranked in the 78th percentile for the state. That indicates that the air quality there is already very poor. Destruction of these 77 acres will further lower the air quality and put these residents at greater risk of dying from COVID-19. That's it.
Okay, who else do we have in the queue?
So as a reminder, those of you who are joining us live and would like to provide a public comment for ordinance number 2020-21, use the raise hand feature to request to speak or down *9 on the phone at this time. I have Kimberly Bukite who would like to give a live comment.
Okay, Ms. Bukite, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I asked for and received confirmation that I have been referring to the most current document and map, which is entitled Conservation Element, Goals, Objectives, and Policies, with the most current date, August 6, 2018. It is the policy document that is the city of Orlando's development code. I'm going to read to you from your own policy. And this is why it's important to acknowledge, well, Ms. Dang already acknowledged that some of the wetlands are tier 1 and some of the wetlands are tier 2. We just don't know where the distinction between the tier 1 and the tier 2 wetlands are. No one has made that distinction or has mapped that. And it is very important that we know where the tier 1 wetlands are and where the tier 2 wetlands are, because the requirements are different. So bear with me, I'm going to read to you from your own development code. This is policy 1.4.4, and I'm skipping ahead. The general location and extent of these wetlands are displayed, and they're talking about all the wetlands, or they're talking about, well, I'll go back. I probably have time. I'm going to start over. Policy 1.4.4. The City of Orlando has adopted a tiered approach to wetlands regulation. This is the city's own designation. The City of Orlando has inventoried all of the wetland areas within its jurisdiction based upon a scientifically valid functional assessment completed in 1992. This is your most up-to-date document, I'm reminding you. As part of this analysis, 11 wetland systems were identified as having above average wetland functional value compared to the other wetlands in the city. The general location and extent, remember I gave you that term extent, which means the boundary of these wetland systems, are displayed on the protected wetland general location map series figures C-2A and C-2B. The exact boundaries of these wetland systems shall be construed to coincide with the jurisdictional boundaries set by the appropriate water management district, by the Department of Environmental Protection, or by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And that's what we have. It's in your reports, and I provided it. It is the wetland determination certified as a boundary by a Florida licensed land surveyor pursuant to Chapter 472. Now I'm going to go on. Tier 1 protected wetlands. Again, your own language. The removal, alteration, or encroachment, that means going into, within an area designated as protected wetland, shall only be allowed in order to accommodate low density and intensity land uses. These are your own words. Goes on. Allowable uses of property may include any natural use of the wetland environment, walking trails, private and public parks of passive orientation, wetland enhancement projects, and single-family residential at a density of 1 dwelling per 5-acre lot. These are your words. So I ask you, if you're going to approve this, kindly seek professional help from the surveying department. Ask that the tier 1 and tier 2 wetlands be distinguished and mapped so that these requirements can be applied to the proper parts of the site. In what I've reviewed, none of the proposed improvements are low density or low intensity. Therefore, any encroachment into whatever somebody is going to say the tier 1 wetlands are, which I believe are the entire site wetlands, but somebody's going to say something about tier 1, tier 2 wetlands, they better be able to show where the distinction is in the boundary because the requirements are different. So I respectfully ask you to relook at this, consider that your staff and consultants may have made a mistake, and I'm going to be generous and give them the benefit of the doubt that they made a mistake, because people do make mistakes, but this is a mistake. This is an error that can be corrected. And President Kennedy once said, a wise man said that an error does not become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. So I hope you will do that. I hope you will give an opportunity for me to show you my expertise in a much more reasonable fashion than trying to talk on this device. But the staff report, July 24th, 2019, no, that's the eSciences report, does not address the jurisdictional boundary of the wetland.
Okay, your time is up. Thank you for your testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have others?
Yes, we have Katrina Shadix, live public comment. Katrina, please remember that you have 5 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Katrina Shadix, 1133 Covington Street, Oviedo, Florida, 32765. I'm the Executive Director of Bear Warriors United and the Director of Florida Wildlife for Animal Wellness Action. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today in opposition of approving ordinance number 2020-21, which seeks to change the future land use designation from conservation to urban activity center. Thank you also for bringing up my favorite holiday, Earth Day, and the importance of environmental protections, recycling, community gardens, charging stations, sustainability, and clean energy efficiency. Huge kudos and much gratitude to Chris Castro for his dedication and hard work. Now, as the director of 2 very effective wildlife organizations, I speak all over the state, country, and world to protect wildlife and wildlife habitat, and I'm honored to have recently worked with Representative David Smith in Tallahassee to pass the bear poaching bill, which increases the fines and penalties for killing black bears. So it makes sense that the first topic of importance I'm speaking on today is bears. I will read a letter from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission regarding any development happening in the forest and conservation lands of the John Young Princeton area. And I quote, according to FWC data, there is potential for Florida black bears to occur in the project area. The FWC has received sufficient number of reports of human-bear conflicts surrounding the project area to suggest recommendations that may reduce the likelihood of negative human-wildlife interactions on site. While black bears tend to shy away from people, they are adaptable and will take advantage of human-provided food sources that are available near this site or may be available after construction. Once bears become accustomed to finding food around people, their natural wariness is reduced to the point that there can be an increased risk to private property and public safety. Now that the city and developers have been warned of possible human-bear encounters, you could be held liable in a court of law should a person or child be injured by a bear. If you think it can't happen, just check out the incident in South Florida where a woman was awarded several $1 million by her HOA for being attacked by native Florida wildlife. I understand that some elected representatives may not care about the bears, but the threat of public safety should concern everyone, and this council would be wise to take preventative measures to make sure negative wildlife encounters don't happen. And what's the best way to do that? To leave wildlife habitat intact. Now on to the second topic of importance, swallowtail kites. Right now in Central Florida, we can look up in the sky and see swallowtail kites gliding peacefully above our vital wetlands and forests. Our forest of pines, oaks, and cypress trees, standing strong and providing essential benefits to humans like flood prevention, oxygen production, and carbon absorption. Swallowtail kites are protected under the Federal Migratory Bird Treaty Act. Today, their primary threats are pesticide use and habitat loss. Many landowners have taken steps to protecting nesting areas and roosting sites for the fire and eating swallowtail kite. Last year, I stood at the southwest corner of John Young and Princeton and watched as a bulldozer tore down hundreds of old growth trees. One tree in particular was home to a mating pair of swallowtail kites. I watched in horror, disgust, and sadness as the two birds flew frantically over the bulldozer, screaming as they helplessly watched their home be destroyed and their baby.
Okay, we've lost her. Ed, we've lost.
Yeah,
this.
she had a minute 30 left, I think, Mayor.
Yeah, it looks like she's not on the phone anymore. Okay.
She might have lost the battery in her cell phone.
Well, we do have,
Mr. Serdar, wanting to speak as well.
and we also have Chuck O'Neill that I need to read his comments in. Short but sweet. Charles W. O'Neill, speaking on behalf of Speak Up Wekiva Incorporated, as was done with Constitution Green on the east side of Orlando, so it should be on the west side of Orlando with the piecing together of Wekiva wetlands parks, each parcel being developed within the headwaters, should follow the lead of the Subaru dealership and donate a significant portion of their property to comprise this park. We have heard the Subaru dealership has committed to placing half of their property into a conservation trust with a reputable organization. Princeton Oaks, the City of Orlando, and Contractors Park should all place at least 50% of their formerly Tier 1 protected wetlands parcels into conservation in order to create Wekiva Wetlands Park. And then, Katrina is back on the phone. She had like a minute and a half left.
Yeah, give her a minute and a half back.
Sorry about that. The phone just cut off. I'll try to pick up where I left off. I was just saying that
Katrina,
last year.
you have a minute and a half left.
Okay, thank you. The one tree in particular was home to a mating pair of swallowtail kites. I watched in horror, disgust, and sadness as his two birds flew frantically over the bulldozer, screaming as they helplessly watched their home be destroyed and their babies killed. This was caught on video, and I did submit it along with a complaint to the FWC. The destruction of these federally protected birds and their habitat happened because this specific council previously voted to change the land use designation. Are you going to vote yes again to paving over conservation lands for corporate profits? The City of Orlando should be rewarding and incentivizing ethical capitalism, not pimping out our environmentally sensitive areas to the highest bidder. As an environmentalist, I'm appalled that the City of Orlando has voted time and time again to destroy the Wekiva Headwaters Forest and the city's last urban forest, while claiming to be one of the greenest cities in the Southeast. Your votes to destroy conservation lands for development makes a mockery out of your GreenWorks program. As a lifelong Democrat, I'm ashamed of elected Democrats on this council repeatedly demonstrating blatant hypocrisy by snubbing your noses at the environmental protections platform of the Democrat Party. As a taxpayer, I'm offended that the city would brag about spending $6 million to save one tree on the white side of the tracks while destroying an entire forest ecosystem and quality of life on the black side of the track. This entire area should have been placed under strictest protections years ago. You'll have one chance to do the moral, ethical, and responsible thing. Turn this into the Buddy Dyer urban forest and passive park and protect it forever. Help prevent nature deficit disorder from disproportionately and negatively impacting African-American children. Please do not approve this ordinance, but know that if you do, and if I get elected to Seminole County Commission, we will be having a Come to Jesus meeting before the end of this year. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And we still have Mr. Serdar out there.
Mr. Serdar is there. Please state your name and you have 5 minutes.
Do we have him turned on?
We are trying to get him. I'm not quite sure what's happening. He's got his hand raised. Mr. Serdar, unmute yourself, please.
He has left. Oh, wait, he's back.
Mr. Serter, are you back on?
Okay, what do we got going?
We can't hear him. I don't know whether he's muted or not, but we can't hear him. He's actually on twice and we can't hear him on either one. So, yeah. He has his hand raised again.
Try him
I'm
again.
on another phone. I'm not too smart with a smartphone. You know, I'm 65 years old next month, in a month and a half, in July. And can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I wanted to say, you know, I don't know if you heard, you know, that lion right there. I don't have a screen, but can you see a lion? Can you see my mom and dad? You know, time changes. Where, you know, my dad was 92. He helps out everybody he could in North Chicago, Illinois, being a principal at the same school he went to as a child. Many thanks for many things. Heck, we have on his 85th birthday, we got a bench at Bonnybrook Golf Course just for my dad. He loved birds. I am a bird man. Flowers. My mother was an interior decorator. You know, my mother's going to be 92, and she didn't have television. Radio. Jack Benny's hometown. He was on radio. I don't know if you can see it. I got teddy bears here. You know, mistakes can be made. Lions shouldn't be shot down. My Uncle Paul was a safari hunter, Illinois racehorse chairman from 1954 to 62. Filthy, filthy rich. But things change. You know, we have to worry about our kids' future. Is now the time with the virus going on to think about, you know, business? We got to think about society. We got to worry about the homeless and the people that are trying to survive every day just to get some food. I'm passing the word about the food banks. Talk about the Salvation Army. I've got their cards here. I had them. You know, I work with the Lake and Sumter Salvation Army. There they are right there. You know, telling people where the homeless programs are for food out in Eustis, Monday and Thursday, 10 to 1. And Salvation Army in Lake and Sumter, it is the Lake Sumter Salvation Army building a 50-bed homeless program. But it's in Leesburg on Route 44 bypass. That still feeds people 7:30 because the virus, you know, they were feeding people 7 to 8 o'clock inside a beautiful building, even handing out free pizzas, you know, pancakes, scrambled eggs. You can't believe orange juice, coffee, all for free. You know, people have to worry about our society. You got car dealerships all over in Libertyville, Illinois, where I just last moved from, where the spirit of independence thrives out of me. That's their slogan. We got car dealerships all over the place. Are people selling cars right now? I got a friend of mine that started Budget, Julius Marks. He's on the board of Condell Hospital at one time. He's got Alzheimer's now. But you know, the secret was to have good Christian kids. Bringing back the cars from Chicagoland was his secret to me. You know, there's a secret to life, and life goes on. You know, I'm broke. I'm waiting for Social Security, but you know, I do what I can because people are out there that care about society. We got churches to worry about. I mean, right here, I got underneath my mobile home park. There's glass bottles, plastic don't go away. Talk about Earth Day. God bless Earth Day, the 50th anniversary. We got to worry about the earth. And businesses got to realize and help out society. You know, I'm passionate about this. And, you know, it's a beautiful day. The sun's shining in Florida. I've always wanted to retire down here. We got people from all over the country of the USA, you know, and it's getting busier and busier and busier. But right now, we got the virus to worry about. You know, the rubber gloves, people are throwing them all over the beaches of Daytona Beach. Derrick Henry, the mayor, on television. I reached out. I got the public speak from afar to Volusia County because I went to Daytona Beach, the world famous beach. And I was on that beach. David Story goes everywhere. And I love Florida. I've been to Sarasota. I've been to Key West. I've been to Miami, where the water's coming in and the climate change is happening. And you guys have done so much, going green at the venues you own. And Jerry Debbie's following you on March 10th because I know. He said, Dave, you're going to be surprised. And by God, you know, I don't know how much time I got left because I'm talking to a black screen. You know, I'm not smart with a smartphone. Somebody told me. What?
30 seconds, David.
Thank you so much. You know, we got to pray for Florida. We got to worry about our veterans that are fighting overseas. We got to believe that we're all going to die. We come in with nothing, we leave with nothing. We got to appreciate the flowers. We got to appreciate the first responders. You know, we got to believe in God. God bless you. You signed my Bible. You know, twice. Look at that. Not there, buddy. No. Right on the back. God bless you. So thank you for your time.
All right, David. Thank you. Thank you for participating virtually. Is that all of our speakers, Madam Clerk?
That is all of our speakers, yes.
Okay, then we will move to discussion.
Yes, Mayor. I would like for Elizabeth to come back up for a moment to clarify a few things, sir.
All right, Elizabeth.
Yes.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I just want you to expound on the comments of Mr. I think Chuck O'Neill about, you know, the open space, requesting that from Subaru and Princeton Oaks. Could you possibly go into, I know it's kind of off guard, about the urban trail that we've been talking about that will go from the Mercy Drive, W.D. Judge corridor, that will weave in through Princeton Oaks, through that Subaru development, which will be residential and commercial, that will go into the packing district across the street?
Yes, that's all correct. But just to expand on that a little bit, there will be a trail that extends parallel to W.D. Judge Road, and then it'll cross over into the packing district park. And then there's an existing sidewalk that runs north and south along John Young that needs some cleanup and that sort of thing. But between that, it'll provide a safe route for people to get to Walmart from the Mercy Drive neighborhood or to get to the park. So that's one of the benefits that this site will offer.
Okay, thank you for that. I just wanted to let everyone know that we've been forward thinking on what's best for that community. We do agree that it is an indigenous community, primarily of seniors and those that are working below the poverty level. And I just like to thank you, Elizabeth, along with Dean Grandin, on the work that you have put into making sure that we put that community first before we even, and the developers that you have been working with understood that and have put in many plans that will be conducive for those folks there in that Mercy Drive corridor. So I just wanted to put the spotlight on the fact that you all have been forward thinking when it comes to preserving that area, but also making sure that it is going to be nature walks and things of that nature that goes through there. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner.
And we should remember this site already had its land use and zoning. So
right.
These are modifications to that, which make it probably a lot better site than it would have been if it was developed in the fashion that, I don't know when that was annexed in, but the original land use and zoning that was indicated, there's 50% of it's now going to be open space versus 20% of it. And Commissioner Hill, I appreciate your work in making sure it's something that's going to fit compatibly with the community and extend the trail into it. And despite what's been said by some of the speakers, I have great confidence in our staff and know you even went outside of the developers' reports and got objective reports done to make sure that the public could have confidence in that. So I appreciate your work and pass that on to everybody in your department.
Thank you, Mayor.
Other discussion? If not, then all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And so the motion carries. All right, don't think that you're done. We still have more to do. Okay, let's move to number 3, hearings ordinances first read.
Ordinance 2020-25, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending the city's growth management plan to create future land use subarea S.24.8 for certain land generally located south of Millennia Boulevard, west of St. John Young Parkway, and east of Interstate 4, comprised of 2.36 acres of land, more or less, providing for amendment of the city's growth management plan, providing for severability, correction of Scrivener's error, and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Stewart. And just one little modification. I think that was South John Young Parkway versus St. John Young Parkway. Is there anyone from the public that would like to be heard, Madam Clerk?
There are none.
Discussion among commissioners? Hearing or seeing none. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So the motion carries unanimously 7-0. Okay, let's turn our attention to hearings ordinances on second reading. Number 1, if you would read that, Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 2020-10, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, annexing to the corporate limits of the city certain property generally located north of Hoffner Avenue, east of Conway Road, south of Simmons Road, and west of South Cimarron Boulevard, and comprised of 24.05 acres of land, more or less, and amending the city's boundary description, amending the city's adopted growth management plan to designate the property as an office low intensity and residential low intensity on the city's official future land use maps, designating the property as a low intensity office residential with the aircraft noise overlay district and special plan for Conway Road, and residential low development with the aircraft noise overlay district on the city's official zoning maps, providing for amendment of the city's official future land use and zoning maps, providing for severability, correction of Scrivener's error, permit disclaimer, and an effective date.
I'd like to make a motion to defer this hearing until a later city council meeting.
I think we need to move it to the May 11th meeting, Commissioner.
Let's amend it then. Let's motion to defer until the May 11th city council meeting.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gray, second by Commissioner Stewart to defer this item to the May 11th council meeting. All in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, number 2, Madam Clerk.
I'm sorry, just a moment, please. Okay, I've been told that we need to go back to 2021 to find out whether Commissioner Commissioner Ortiz voted yes because he was muted.
As I voted yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I voted yes.
Okay, then we're good. Okay, ready for the next one?
Yes, ma'am.
Ordinance 2020-11, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending the city's growth management plan to change the future land use map designation for certain land generally located north of West Colonial Drive, east of Mercy Drive, south of W.D. Judge Drive, and west of North John Young Parkway, comprised of 22.717 acres of land, more or less, from residential low intensity to residential medium intensity in part, changing the property zoning designation from planned development with the Wekiva Overlay Zoning District to residential medium intensity in part, 1 to 2 family residential in part, and conservation in part, all with the Wekiva Overlay Zoning District, providing for amendment of the city's official future land use and zoning maps, providing for severability, correction of Scrivener's error, permit disclaimer, and an effective date.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sheehan. Do we have any requests for public input?
Yes, I have a statement from Dr. Jones. And then we have another. And as a reminder to those of you joining us live and would like to provide a public comment for ordinance 2020-11, use the raise hand feature to request to speak or dial *9 on the phone at this time. Statement of opposition to ordinance 2020-11 for 3750 WD Judge Drive for the second hearing, Orlando City Council, April 27th, 2020. I, Dr. Wanda Jones, am in opposition to ordinance 2020-11 in approving the applicant's request for the above mentioned ordinance. The City Municipal Planning Board violated several city ordinances and land code uses and state statutes regarding the site in question. If the City of Orlando City Council also approves these ordinances, it will follow a consistent pattern of violating its own ordinances, land use code, and state statute. Furthermore, it will be providing consent to activities that permanently damage essential wetland, aquifer, and natural resources that are essential to the health, state, and federally protected waterways and several endangered species. In addition, the City Council will be supporting, facilitating, and increasing a public health hazard that the city has already actively participated in creating. The city mayor and commissioners have facilitated the destruction of the Wekiva Spring Aquifer Recharge System and wetland forest for the past 5 years. This recharge system is critically essential to the existence of health and of state and federally protected waterways and water bodies. Neither the city nor the developers participating in this destruction of these critically important natural systems have conducted unbiased, comprehensive hydrological and geological studies to determine that the short and long-term effects of the loss of these impervious surfaces areas on the health of a spring and river system that is already declining as it relates to water quality and volume. Approval of this ordinance will further facilitate the permanent loss of these hydrologic systems and ecosystems which are interconnected. This ordinance will be in violation of the city's own ordinance that protect wetlands and habitat, and will also be in violation of state and federal law. The city must adhere to its ordinance, state statutes, and federal law. The entire 22 acres of wetlands protected by city ordinance, state statute, the Wekiva Parkway Protection Act, and the Wekiva River Protection Act, and federal law, the Clean Water Act, and the Endangered Species Act. Approval of this ordinance will negatively impact an adjacent minority community and endanger the respiratory, cardiovascular, and overall health of the residents in that community. There have not been any short or long-term impact studies conducted to determine the effect of the loss of hundreds of acreage of forest trees on public health or air quality. Air quality in this community has already begun to decline due to the city's approval of the destruction of over 160 acres of wetland forest and thousands of trees that once existed less than a mile from this community. If the City Council approves this ordinance, it will further condone and facilitate the destruction of critically important Wekiva ecosystems and wetlands and the intentional exposure of hundreds of residents to carcinogenic air pollution. A recent study from Harvard University correlates poor air quality with the onset of the most severe symptoms in people who contract COVID-19. These people lived in areas of poor air quality. Now more than ever, it is important to stop deforesting the headwaters of Little Wekiva River in order to protect the health of these residents in this African-American community. This is a serious hypocrisy between City Council's new tree protection ordinances and this current ordinance to destroy thousands of old growth trees. Many people in this community are senior citizens. Approving this ordinance and projects and thus facilitating the destruction of old forest trees that are currently reducing tons of air pollution and protecting the senior citizens and respiratory challenge residents in the neighborhood in which this forest is located is environmental injustice. Approval of this ordinance that is essentially a deforestation ordinance will result in a further decline in air quality. I include all comments and others and made in opposition at the Municipal Planning Board meeting and the quasi-judicial hearing for this and related ordinances as a part of the statement of opposition. I also include as part of the statement the closing arguments from the quasi-judicial hearing for this and related ordinances as Exhibit A. Please find Exhibit A attached to the email in which the statement was sent. That's it for Dr. Jones. And then we have Kimberly Bukite, who would like to speak. No. As a reminder, which one? Oh, okay. I get to read Kimberly's this time. I'm opposed to approval. Please postpone this item until after the stay-at-home order has been lifted and public can fully participate. I'm staying home in conformance with state and local orders and federal guidelines. I do not believe that I am being provided with reasonable opportunity to be heard according to Florida Statute 286.0114. Should this item proceed with consideration by City Council, my concerns are, as I have stated in the past on several occasions, starting with the Municipal Planning Board hearing, appeal, quasi-judicial hearing, and first reading of this ordinance. 1, a tree survey has not been performed in compliance with the requisite Florida statutes and City of Orlando Code. Protected trees on the entire site have not been identified and documented and agreed to by applicant and owner. I'm not aware that survey department reviews have taken place. Therefore, individuals with the proper expertise may not have been consulted on this issue and the matter is not properly documented. Please deny this until the appropriate tree survey has been performed and reviewed. 2, applicant is not the owner of this property. Owner's affidavit does not match the name on the record title holder for this property as of the materials that were published for this project. Please deny this until the appropriate documents have been corrected and verified. 3, the access to the phase 2 or rear part of the property has not been addressed, and therefore the affected parties do not have the requisite information to speak to this matter. What is the proposed access to the rear of the property? Is it going to be on site through the wetlands or down the county roads that are currently closed to through traffic and have dead end streets for as long as anyone can remember? I have received conflicting answers to these questions in the past and would like clarification in order to be able to comment appropriately on the future access issues. Please deny this until the plan for future access to the rear portion of this property is provided, reviewed, and approved. Number 4, it is the fact that in the vicinity of this site, wetlands designated as City of Orlando Tier 1 protected wetlands have been approved for destruction on a project-by-project basis. The City of Orlando's own designated Tier 1 protected wetlands are, as indicated in the City of Orlando Comprehensive Plan, Conservation Elements, Section 1.4.4, Tier 1 protected wetlands are specifically mapped, documented, and memorialized at Figure C2, Part A, protected wetlands, west, page C25 of Conservation Elements. Even with these undisputed protections on wetlands in the vicinity of this site, wetlands are being destroyed to make way for buildings, pavement, and other improvements. I've been told that wetlands on this particular site are not to be encroached upon, as has also been stated in past presentations. Since I'm making this comment in advance of seeing any updated plans, I assume that wetlands are still to be untouched. Assurance is needed in the form of some form of protection being placed on wetlands and trees being identified for long-term protection in the wetland area, since it seems highly likely that any agreement to preserve the wetlands and trees on the site or any others will not be honored in the future or enforced by the City of Orlando or Water Management District. This is a disturbing trend and will be a problem with the approval in the future in this. If the commitment to leave the wetlands untouched is not memorialized by a legal agreement, if this development receives approval, kindly include a requirement that the applicant's commitment to maintain the wetlands and trees is memorialized with a legal agreement to which the City of Orlando is a party and will be an enforceable agreement subject to public scrutiny. Thank you. Kimberly Bukite.
Any additional, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Katrina Shaddix would like to public comment live. Katrina, let me remind you of 5 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
All right, thank you. Katrina Shaddix, 1133 Covington Street, Oviedo, Florida, 32765. Again, I'm the Executive Director of Bear Warriors United and Director of Florida Wildlife for Animal Wellness Action. And I'm speaking for the trees and the animals because they can't speak for themselves. So I hope you take it to heart, my passion to protect them and especially what's left of them in this very, small area of Orlando. I think you have a choice, you have the chance, and you have a choice to save it instead of develop it. I hope you can make it into the Buddy Dyer Urban Forest and Passive Park. There are ways for y'all to be heroes here instead of the villains, because right now it's looking a lot like villains, and I don't like this. Y'all, the city of Orlando has worldwide influence, and you have the power and potential to do the right thing here. Please do not destroy this part of the Princeton John Young intersection. It can be saved, and it can be high quality again. But I do want to just support the statements that Ms. Buchheit and Dr. Jones said, and also want to thank Madam Clerk, and I don't know your name, but you have done an amazing job with my emailing you during this and then keeping everything in order and organized. And I just want to apologize for being not familiar with this format of speaking, and thank you profusely for, getting me on the call and answering my emails in the middle of organizing the Orlando City meeting today. You've done an amazing job, and I thank you very much. And that's all.
Thank you, Katrina. We're just getting used to this as well.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Clerk?
There are no other speakers. However, I've been given a note for the votes, a reminder to have the commissioners unmute when they register their vote.
Okay, further discussion?
Yes, Mayor, I have something. My hand's up.
Hill. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Once again, I want to call up Elizabeth Dane to clarify some of the concerns.
Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Yes, Commissioner. Hi.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you for your work on this. I know we've been working on this a couple years now, about at least a year and a half, and appreciate your leadership. Can you please clarify that this development is already zoned for residential, but it was single family homes?
Right. It's zoned today for 112 townhome units. So the choice really is between the townhome project or doing the multifamily with the open space preservation.
Absolutely. Can you talk about, for some of the environmentalists, what the developers have agreed to do when it comes to that back area being so contaminated? Can you talk about the debris and the contamination and the cleanup process?
I believe that's the other site. I'm not aware of anything specific on this one.
This is the senior housing firm park at
right. Yes.
Okay, that's what he told me. So Mayor Dyer and Council, as you know, we are huge. We have a Greenworks department, and we're huge when it comes to the environment. But today, unfortunately, I'm going to speak for the people. I can't necessarily speak for the trees and the turtles. But what we have going on that corridor is at least 5 years or so ago, Mayor Dyer, through your leadership and council's approval, we were able to purchase some apartments there in that Mercer Drive corridor that was dilapidated and uninhabitable. And so there were seniors and many low-income families that unfortunately had to move, and many of them are still residing in many of the extended stay hotels there, and aren't able to afford those. They're paying $300 to $400 per week. And so now it's deemed some of the seniors there in that area homeless. They've been sleeping in Walmart parking lots and things of that nature, sleeping on relatives' couches. And as we know, when we start talking about the health disparities, especially for our seniors, we agreed one thing, that housing first, that we needed to house some of the most vulnerable residents that was homeless, and primarily our seniors. And so And so we have started development with Ability Housing, and of course now Blue Sky development that will be creating some affordable housing. So one thing we haven't focused on in that corner was senior affordable housing. And I think like no time such as this, especially with the COVID-19, and we don't have a vaccine. That's a couple years out, or a year and a half or so out. We do know that there's going to be a resurgence, and we don't know for how long or how many years, if there's going to be a somewhat of a cure. And I would hope that council would approve this very important project. We know, Mayor and council, as soon as we build a affordable housing or mixed income housing complex, that it is full before we can even put the doors, open the doors or cut the ribbon. And so I really believe in this project. I believe in this group. Their hearts are sincere about helping the indigenous people there in that Mercy Drive corridor, and especially focused on our seniors and our low-income families. I think that's why, Elizabeth, they added a component about the duplex, because they could do single-family homes, but they wanted to do multi-family homes so they can reach the masses and then do duplexes on this site while they remediate some of the decades and decades of old contamination. From what I've been told, and as you said, you haven't spoke to them on this note, on this particular site, but it was already deemed for residential development. We're just voting today to increase the intensity to medium intensity to where they can do multifamily.
That's correct. So the piece on the south, they originally did ask for multifamily on the southern piece as well, and staff expressed concern about compatibility with the existing residential neighborhood, and they agreed to change it to just allow for single family and duplex on the southern piece.
Commissioner Hill, you're muted.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your direction on F5. But thank you again, Mayor Dyer. I know you have been a great partner to this community, and you have been instrumental with helping to put these affordable pieces together, which is so needed, not just in the city of Orlando, but throughout the county, working with Mayor Dimmons. I do want to add, and this is, I really appreciate everyone's input. And I want those that gave public comment to just consider the people. And I really appreciate their activism when it comes to the city being responsible, when it comes to nature. But sometimes we do have to look at people. And right now there is a great need, and people are out there dying for lack of housing and adequate health care. So I think on this one, guys, we do need to move forward. It's already zoned for residential. I'm again stating that I hope that we would approve to adopt this very important development there on the northwestern part of the city of Orlando, District 5.
And I'll remind everybody that Elizabeth gave an extensive presentation on first read of this ordinance and addressed everything that came up during the course of the additional testimony today.
Thank you.
Okay, further comment or discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Did you get all seven?
Aye.
Did you get everybody,
Yep,
Madam
get
Clerk?
everyone. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passed 7-0. All right, let's go ordinance first read number 1.
Ordinance 2020-26, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, amending the Millennium Park Plan Development Zoning District, providing for additional conditions, providing that prior ordinance still in effect, providing for permit disclaimer, correction of scrivener's errors, severability, and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Hill. These are not hearings, so is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I got that 7-0, Madam Clerk.
Okay.
Number 2.
Ordinance 2020-19, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Orlando, Florida, annexing to the corporate limits of the city certain land generally located south of East Michigan Street, east of South Brown Avenue, and west of South Shine Avenue, and comprised of 0.128 acres of land, more or less, and amending the city's boundary description, amending the city's adopted growth management plan to designate the property as residential low intensity on the city's official future land use maps, designating the property as the one family residential district on the city's official zoning maps, providing for amendment of the city's official future land use and zoning maps, providing for severability, correction of scrivener's errors, permit disclaimer, and an effective date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sheehan, second by Commissioner Hill. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Got it, 7-0, Madam Clerk.
Okay.
Commissioner Ortiz, I want to compliment you on keeping that smile on your face the whole time during the course of this meeting. Looking good. All right, that concludes the agenda business of the Orlando City Council for today.
Thank you.